Happy Halloween.
It cut. I heard. It cut off the first part of your story.
So it's not a happy Halloween, it's just a Halloween?
It went Halloween. Let's see how it went. We could go back anyway. But the muhahaha was very scary.
Good. Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. Today we've got a blind live reading of Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell. Hi, Libralita. Hi, Zebus.
We are ready.
For those who are new and have just found their way here, I will say that Kita and I are reading Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell for the very first time. This is not an audiobook. We will be commenting as we read through it. And that's part of the fun here.
Absolutely. It's the format.
Yes. Now, for those who are interested, Kita and I have read chapter 11, Droplets in Way of Kings, and chapter 24, In Well of Ascension. So, no spoilers past those points, please.
Please?
And for those interested, I could save this for the end, but I'm so darn excited for it. I'm going to be scheduling another fan casting as our next live stream for whatever characters show up in this story, Emperor's Soul, and Sixth of the Dusk, which Kita and Libralita here will be a part of.
We're here. So
this story takes place on Threnody. Threnodites are known for their good food and getting the short end of the Cosmere stick. Oh boy.
Do we get food descriptions?
We better.
If they're known for their good food, we need food descriptions, and Dorcas does like those.
Important question, since this was recommended for a Halloween stream. Will there be yelling involved at any point in this series, book, novella, or screaming? Please let us know. What?
And names. They're known for names?
Cool. Well, why don't we start with the photo in the beginning?
Yes, let us.
Longtime viewers will be impressed by the fact that I was able to get Kita up for the solo layout without jumping to me.
Absolutely, and you will be not impressed at all by my handling of the book in front of the camera, which is par for the course. So there we go. That's the picture. Focus! My autofocus. There you go.
So it looks like it's an evening with some sort of constellation up at the top. Mushrooms below, and it looks like she's slicing like space-time.
Yes.
Yeah?
Is this the subtle knife? Have you read that? Anyway, so that subtle is knife, the thing. And then we've got, it's a part of his Dark Materials. It's a completely different writer. And then the symbol over here, interesting. We got the knife there. And but you guys are obviously going to find that familiar with having been elsewhere in the Cosmere.
Yes. Hello, Glidus.
Ha! Yay, you're going to read along with us? Thanks. It's exciting.
Good. Well, shall we start?
We are starting. Let's go.
The one you have to watch for is the White Fox, Dagon said, sipping his beer. They say he shook hands with the evil itself, that he visited the fallen world and came back with strange powers. He can kindle fire on even the deepest of nights, and no shade will dare come for his soul. Yes, the white fox, meanest bastard in these parts for sure. Pray he doesn't set his eyes on you, friend. If he does, you're dead.
Well,
Dagon's drink. What?
Sorry. We've got a fox. There's the picture. Hello. See?
Oh, in the
in the
thumbnail picture.
Yeah, and then he also spoke about. Remember, part of the format is I interrupt a lot because we're being transformative. So I'm the pause button. Hi, and I'm so sorry, Dorcas.
All good.
And we also, well, I guess no shade is. Are those shades in the picture there? Those meowsters?
Yes, actually, I think I see one of those creatures in the picture in the book as well, near where the knife is. I didn't notice that before, but now I do. Are those eyes?
Ooh, true. Yes, they are.
Neat.
Okay.
Dagon's drinking companion had a neck like a slender wine bottle and a head like a potato stuck sideways on the top. He squeaked as he spoke, a last port accent, voice echoing in the eaves of the Waystop's common room. Why'd he set his eyes on me? That depends, friend, Dagon said, looking about as a few overdressed merchants sauntered in. They wore black coats, ruffled lace poking out the front, and the tall-topped, wide-brimmed hats of fort folk. They wouldn't last 2 weeks out here in the forests. It depends, Dagon's dining companion prompted. It depends on what? It depends, Dagon's dining companion prompted. It depends on what? On a lot of things, friend. The White Fox is a bounty hunter, you know? What crimes have you committed? What have you done? Nothing. That squeak was like a rusty wheel. Nothing. Men don't come out into the forests to do nothing, friend. Pilgrims. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Also, there's no Hoyt in this book. TBD on sixth death, because I have a theory. Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
We're still on Hoyd watch for Well of Ascension.
Mm-hmm. They're so kind of. Okay, cool. Also, well, see how Dorcas just performs the voices and changes them around. He's such a perfectionist. I'd be like, you guys get what I mean. No, he has to go. He's a proper performer, in my opinion. But then again, now he's going to tell me to shut up. So
yeah, pretty much.
Let's go.
Point being, people come to this forest, and his companion. Go on.
People come to this forest, and that it's not a good forest.
Sounds like it. One that necessitates a bounty hunter of some kind. Mm-hmm. Although is the bounty hunter hunting people? Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
Anyway, his companion glanced from side to side. He'd given his name as Ernest, but then Dagon had given his name as Amity. Names didn't mean a whole lot in the forests, or maybe they meant everything. The right ones, that was. Ernest leaned back, scrunching down that fishing pole neck of his as if trying to disappear into his beer. He'd bite. People liked hearing about the White Fox, and Dagon considered himself an expert. At least he was an expert at telling stories to get ratty men like Ernest to pay for his drinks. I'll give him some time to stew, Dagon thought, smiling to himself. Let him worry. Ernest would ply him for more information in a bit. While he waited, Dagon leaned back, surveying the room. The merchants were making a nuisance of themselves, calling for food, saying they meant to be on their way in an hour. That proved them to be fools. Traveling at night in the forests? Good homesteader stock would do it. Men like these, though, they'd probably take less than an hour to violate one of the simple rules and bring the shades upon them. Dagon put the idiots out of his mind. Okay.
The simple rules have capital S and capital R.
Yeah.
It is known, is what is being told to us.
Yeah. I'm also comparing it to Sixth of the Dusk, in that forests are not unlike nature. They are nature, an element of nature, I suppose. And the islands were dangerous, so...
I love that Gladys says the shades is slang for sunglasses. Obviously. Absolutely.
That fellow in the corner, though, dressed all in brown, still wearing his hat despite being indoors, that fellow looked truly dangerous. I wonder if it's him, Dagon thought.
Sorry.
That's exactly what I thought!
I'm sorry, I watched the trilogy last week, so I'm like primed for that.
Strider. Surely someone knew his name. The authorities in the forts paid him the bounties, after all. I want to know what these bounties are about. Who or what are they hunting?
Yeah, like, and why in the forest? Like, I understand bounty hunters are... You're out and about being a bounty, and then you get hunted, and that's it. But, like, seems like it's an area specialization, like, okay, you're a bounty hunter for the forests, within the forest. What are you busy doing in the forests in the first place?
Yeah. And back to the Sixth of the Dusk connections, it was a similar thing in which these inexperienced outsiders were coming into this new and dangerous territory. And the people that are already there with more experience are kind of judgmental. I mean, not without reason, most likely, but just similar. The Waystop's owner, Madame Silence, passed by the table and deposited Dagon's meal with an unceremonious thump. Scowling, she topped off his beer, spilling a sudsy dribble onto his hand before limping off. She was a stout woman, tough. Everyone in the forests was tough. The ones that survived, at least. He'd learned that a scowl from Silence was just her way of saying hello. She'd given him an extra helping of venison. She often did that. He liked to think that she had a fondness for him. Maybe someday. Don't be a fool, he thought to himself as he dug into the heavily gravied food and took a few gulps of his beer. Better to marry a stone than Silence Montaigne. Stone showed more affection. That's funny.
Yeah, she's got resting rich face. You know what? Let's keep it that way.
Better to marry a stone than Silence Montaigne. A stone showed more affection. Likely she gave him an extra slice because she recognized the value of a repeat customer. Fewer and fewer came this way lately. Too many shades. And then there was Chesterton. Nasty business, that.
Oh, stop teasing us.
Stop teasing us.
Like, I know he has to do this because it's short story, whatever, build everything. So he's just like, oh, by the way, hey, and I say he, I mean, what's the name? Brandison. Just teasing us there, just like, oh, by the way, you want to know some stuff? There's this Chesterton stuff, but you don't know. Keep reading. We're gonna do that if I keep quiet. Let's go.
So, he's a bounty hunter too, this fox? The man who called himself Ernest seemed to be sweating. Dagon smiled. Hooked right good, this one was. He's not just a bounty hunter. He's the bounty hunter. No, the white fox doesn't go for the small-timers, and no offense, friend, but you seem pretty small-time. His friend grew more nervous. What have you done? But, the man stammered, he wouldn't come for me, pretending I'd done something, of course. Anyway, he wouldn't come in here, would he? I mean, Madame Silence Waystop, it's protected. Everyone knows that. Shade of her dead husband lurks here. I had a cousin who saw it, I did. So, what I'm getting here is that this is a place criminals come to.
Yeah? Well, I suppose, yeah. But shades seem like they are a danger to everyone.
Yeah. Shades, I imagine, are those monsters from the artwork.
Yeah, and there is, like, it's being guarded by the husband, the dead husband. So that threat is taken care of, and then I suppose I still don't get the whole bounty hunter bounty thing. Like, what do you just get souls? And because look, we're in the forests of hell apparently. No, we aren't. But still, I'm just not understanding the mechanism of bounty, right? Like, but I guess what you're saying is that's why you're saying this. The whole reason we're talking about bounty. Yeah, you're small time. These are criminals. That if you're here, you're a criminal, and there you go. That therefore a bounty hunter. Yeah.
And okay. I'm imagining they have to travel through the forest, presumably, to get to some safe place. And
to the next mark, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, where was I? The white fox doesn't fear shades, Dagon said, leaning in. Now, mind you, I don't think he'd risk coming in here, but not because of some shade. Everyone knows Everyone knows this is neutral ground. You've got to have some safe places, even in the forests. But Dagon smiled at Silence as she passed him by on the way to the kitchens again. This time she didn't scowl at him. He was getting through to her for certain. But, Ernest squeaked. Well, Dagon said, I could tell you a few things about how the white fox takes men, but you see, my beer is nearly empty. A shame. I think you'd be very interested in how the white fox caught Makepeace Hampshire. Great story, that. Ernest squeaked for Silence to bring another beer, though she bustled into the kitchen and didn't hear. Dagon frowned, but Ernest put a coin on the side of the table, indicating he'd like a refill when Silence or her daughter returned. That would do. Dagon smiled to himself and launched into the story.
Safe places. That's a spoiler! No, I'm kidding.
And then it seems we switch to a different POV. Silence Montaigne closed the door to the common room, then turned and pressed her back against it. She tried to still her racing heart by breathing in and out. Had she made any obvious signs? Did they know she recognized them? William Ann passed by, wiping her hands on a cloth.
Mother?
The young woman asked, pausing.
Mother, are you... Fetch the book, quickly, child.
William Ann's face went pale, then she hurried into the back pantry. Oh, I'm so glad there are more female characters in this.
Great. Yeah, I love the contrast between our two performances. It's great. We're going from...
I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that, Glidus. I hope that's a joke.
Yes.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited.
He's done a spoiler because he's told us which gender it is.
I'm sure that that's a joke, but I cannot tell you guys how excited I am for you to hear the theories that Vin and I are coming up with.
I'm Vin!
Vin is, in fact, the Chondra. It is known. William Ann's face went pale. Then she hurried into the back pantry. Silence clenched her apron to still her nerves, then joined William Ann as the girl came out of the pantry with a thick leather satchel. White flour dusted its cover and spine from the hiding place. Silence took the satchel and opened it on the high kitchen counter, revealing a collection of loose-leaf papers. Most had faces drawn on them. Silence rifled through the pages. William Ann moved to the peephole for spying into the common room.
Okay,
so that confirmed.
And
Glidus confirming it is a joke. Thank you. We're taking this one very seriously.
Yeah. I love how it's a book, but it's just a collection of pictures. I mean, but you know.
Well, if this is a place that criminals come to, it could be useful to have like a log of faces in case someone comes in with a wanted poster or something, right?
Yeah. Are they snitches? Because they're gonna get stitches otherwise. So let's see.
I get the sense that this woman is not to be trifled with. She seems very dangerous, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
For a few moments, the only sound to accompany Silence's thumping heart was that of hastily turned pages.
It's the man with the long neck, isn't it?
William Ann asked.
I remember his face from one of the bounties. That's just Lamentation Winebear, a pretty horse thief. He's barely worth 2 measures of silver. Who then? The man in the back with the hat? It's Aragorn. Sorry.
Totally Aragorn. Confirmed. Excellent. Thank you. Silence shook her head, finding a sequence of pages at the bottom of her pile. She inspected the drawings.
God beyond,
she thought.
I can't decide if I want to be them or not. Want
At
it
least
to be
her
them or not.
hand said,
Sorry. Want it to be them.
Take 2.
Gods beyond. I can't decide if I want it to be them or not.
At least her hand stopped shaking. William Ann scurried back and craned her neck over Silence's shoulder. At 14, the girl was already taller than her mother. Fine thing to suffer, a child taller than you. Though William Ann grumbled about being awkward and lanky, her slender build foreshadowed a beauty to come. She took after her father. Hey.
Oh.
Whoa. Tall women, best women. Hi, Gray. Hey,
Sure.
hey. Oh, sorry, Kit, I didn't mean to offend.
But it didn't say God plural. It's God beyond. I suppose.
Yes, I would have made Kit do a third take. It does say God, but
yeah. I suppose what Libralita might be referring to is that there is a extra God. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
But on that topic, Kit, you have a line.
Sorry. Oh, God beyond.
William Ann said, raising a hand to her mouth.
You mean?
Oh, yeah, we go. Well done, Sanderson.
Chesterton and divide.
Silence said, the shape of the chin, the look in the eyes, they were the same.
He walked right into our hands with 4 of his men.
The bounty on those 5 would be enough to pay her supply needs for a year, maybe 2. Oh, is this a Western?
Yeah. They're coming into the saloon and, yeah, it makes sense.
Her eyes flickered to the words below the pictures, printed in harsh, bold letters. Extremely dangerous. Wanted for murder, grape, extortion, and of course there was the big one at the end. And assassination. Why do I like Westerns? I've never felt particularly drawn to them. I don't dislike them. What do you think about Westerns, Kit?
Yeah, I don't dislike them. You know what? I think I do like them more than most people would like them, I suppose. But that's probably just because of the horses.
I think it was the guy that made Breaking Bad was Vince Gilligan, right? I think he said something to the effect of Breaking Bad was supposed to be a modern day Western.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Gray, can you back me up on this? You know things about stuff like that.
Also, I appreciate that it was actually in bold letters in the book. Extremely dangerous, wanted for murder, blah, blah, blah. So, yes. And assassination. That's interesting. Like, assassination, so I suppose, is murder for hire. Like, we have murder there, guys. It's part of it. And the most important one at the big one at the end, assassination. It's like, so he's a murderer, and then, like, the most important part is he's a murderer for hire, I suppose.
Silence had always wondered if Chesterton and his men had intended to kill the governor of the most powerful fort city on this continent, or if it had been an accident. I have to reread that sentence to make sure that I absorbed it. Silence had always wondered if Chesterton and his men had intended to kill the governor of the most powerful fort city on this continent, or if it had been an accident. Okay, got that. Cool. Governor. A simple robbery gone wrong. Either way, Chesterton understood what he'd done. Before the incident, he had been a common, if accomplished, highway bandit. Now he was something greater, something far more dangerous. Chesterton knew that if he were captured, there would be no mercy, no quarter. Lastport had painted Chesterton as an anarchist, a menace, and a psychopath. Chesterton had no reason to hold back, so he didn't. You know, I've been listening to the Bonnie and Clyde musical a little bit recently. One specific song that keeps getting in my head, "This World Will Remember Me."
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The world. If you go and cause havoc and kill political figures, as Libralita has explained, and that's why it means rich. Well, Zebus says it's because rich people hate you. Your bounty goes up higher. That's a memorable person right there.
Chesterton had no reason to hold back, so he didn't.
Oh, God, beyond.
Silence thought, looking at the continuing list of his crimes on the next page. Beside her,
rap sheet. So it goes like it's a two-pager. Sorry.
I have to keep in mind this was recommended for Halloween. It's going to get scary soon.
Oh, well, you know what? Actually, the previous one was actually pretty scary too. So
true.
All the dead, all the dying everywhere.
The dead sixes everywhere.
Yeah.
Beside her, William Ann whispered the words to herself.
He's out there?
She asked.
But where? The merchants.
Silence said.
What?
William Ann rushed back to the peephole. The wood there, indeed all around the kitchen, had been scrubbed so hard that it had been bleached white. Sabruki had been cleaning again.
I can't see it,
William Ann said.
Look closer.
Silence hadn't seen it at first either, even though she spent each night with the book memorizing its faces. That's an interesting character trait.
She's working hard. She's making sure she knows.
And what does cleaning the room have to do with recognizing the faces? I'm not sure I got that.
World building.
Okay.
And also just, they keep a good shop there, scrub the place so hard. And also we are introduced to some other person called Sabruki or something.
Yes. Before I forget, guys, Zebus made a video about, I think, One Piece and Mistborn. Worth checking out, probably. I avoided because of potential spoilers. I was not told it was spoiler-free. But, yeah, and also Libralita makes Cosmere content. So, from Yaoshin. Oh no, I've lost my place in the book. Okay, there it is.
Same.
A few moments later, William Ann gasped, raising her hand to her mouth.
That seems so foolish of him. Why is he going about perfectly visible like this, even in disguise? Everyone will remember just another band of fool merchants from the fort who thought they could brave the forests. It's a clever ruse. When they vanish from the paths in a few days, it will be assumed, if anyone cares to wonder, that the shades got them. Besides, this way Chesterton can travel quickly and in the open, visiting way stops and listening for information.
Was this how Chesterton discovered good targets to hit? Had they come through her way stop before? The thought made her stomach turn. She had fed criminals many times. Some were regulars. Every man was probably a criminal out in the forests, if only for ignoring taxes imposed by the fort folk. Chesterton and his men were different.
Well,
what?
Yeah, so that I suppose that's why we can assume that everyone's got some sort of criminal thing because you're going through the forest to evade tax or something.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I do not care about One Piece spoilers. Chesterton and his men were different. She didn't need the list of crimes to know what they were capable of doing.
Where's Sabruki?
Silence said. William Ann shook herself as if coming out of a stupor.
She's feeding the pigs. Shadows! You don't think they'd recognize her, do you?
Shadows! Okay. Brandon Sanderson frequently has the best
Curses.
exclamations and curses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Storm you! Yeah.
One's above. Storm you.
Oh,
You don't think they'd recognize her, do you?
No.
Silence said.
I'm worried she'll recognize them.
Sabruki might only be 8, but she could be shockingly, disturbingly observant. So help me, if Sabruki has any lines, Kite, you better do a really cute voice for her.
I will try. But I could do a creepy voice, a child. No, it's not. Let's just have a proper cute child, the way they're supposed to be.
Silence closed.
Oh, sorry.
Silence closed the book of bounties. She rested her fingers on the satchel's leather. Rusts.
We're going to kill them, aren't we?
William
Yes.
Ann asked.
Yes. How much are they worth? Sometimes, child, it's not about what a man is worth.
Silence heard the faint lie in her voice. Times were increasingly tight, with the prices of silver from both Bastion Hill and Last Port on the rise. Sometimes it wasn't about what a man was worth, but this wasn't one of those times.
Sorry, I'm enjoying the little lie. Actually, it's not a little. I'll get the poison.
William Ann left the peephole and crossed the room.
Something light, child.
Silence cautioned.
These are dangerous men. They'll notice if things are out of the ordinary.
I'm not a fool, Mother.
William Ann said dryly.
I'll use fenweed. They won't taste it in the beer. Half dose. I don't want them collapsing at the table.
William Ann nodded, entering the old storage room where she closed the door and began prying up floorboards to get to the poisons. Fenweed would leave the men cloudy-headed and dizzy, but wouldn't kill them. Silence didn't dare risk something more deadly. If suspicion ever came back to her waistop, her career, and likely her life, would end. She needed to remain in the minds of travelers, the crotchety but fair innkeeper who didn't ask too many questions. Her waistop was a place of perceived safety, even for the roughest of criminals. She bedded down each night with a heart full of fear that someone would realize a suspicious number of the White Fox's bounties stayed at Silence's waistop in the days preceding their demise.
Silence the White Fox.
What?
Silence is the White Fox.
Is she the White Fox?
Yeah.
Wait, did Dagon say the White Fox was a guy?
But it seems like it's a myth, so it doesn't really matter. Because it says because it's just would realize a suspicious number of the White Fox's bounties stayed at Silence's waistop in the west. But I guess that's just like a statement of like, look, bounties, everyone's bounties are the White Fox's bounties. Yeah.
She went into the pantry to put away the bounty book. Here too the walls had been scrubbed clean, the shelves freshly sanded and dusted. That child. Who had heard of a child who would rather clean than play? Of course, given what Sabruki had been through. Silence could not help reaching onto the top shelf and feeling the crossbow she kept there. Silver bolt heads. Silver!
Oh,
Silver takes down werewolves, I think, yeah?
Well, takes down shades. There we go.
She kept it for shades and hadn't yet turned it against a man. Drawing blood was too dangerous in the forests. It still comforted her to know that in case of a true emergency, she had the weapon at hand. Bounty book stowed, she went to check on Sabruki. The child was indeed caring for the pigs. Silence liked to keep a healthy stock, though of course not for eating. Pigs were said to ward away shades. She used any tool she could make to make the way stop seem more safe. Pigs keep away the shades? That's interesting.
I love this superstition. It's just like, oh, well, So it's just like, she doesn't really know if it's effective. It's just like, if people see the pigs, they will say, oh, this place is more protected. So that makes sense. It's good marketing. It's good. It's like, it just makes your place more attractive.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter to her whether or not it's true or not, so long as it looks true and people believe it.
Yeah, and we've gotten more into the Sabruki thing now, so that makes sense why that was brought up. We got the first introduction to Sabruki as a name was she had been cleaning again, so that made me think of an adult, and then now we know it's a child, and oh, she's gone through something. So nice structure being put into the story that with the information.
Sabruki knelt inside the pig shack. The short girl had dark skin and long black hair. Nobody would have taken her for Silence's daughter, even if they hadn't heard of Sabruki's unfortunate history. The child hummed to herself, scrubbing at the wall of the enclosure.
Child?
Silence asked. Sabruki turned to her and smiled. What a difference 1 year could make. Once Silence would have sworn that this child would never smile again. Sabruki had spent her first 3 months at the way stop staring at walls. No matter where Silence had put her, the child had moved to the nearest wall, sat down, and stared at it all day, never speaking a word, eyes dead as those of a shade.
Oh my goodness. What has she been through?
I assume some of what was listed on the on the list earlier, although not necessarily by those people. Anyway.
Well, she could recognize them, apparently. Or they would recognize her. That's what we've been given. Okay. Aunt Silence, are you well?
You've got a better 8-year-old voice inside you, Kitty. I believe in you.
Well, the only voice I could do is a Syl voice. And then they'll be the same. Aunt Silence, are you well? I'm fine, child. They're still better? Oh my gosh. Okay, it was better?
No,
okay,
I said
fine.
that's better.
Yeah, we can't continue. Yeah. If we try and find the voices, we're never finishing the story. I'm fine, child. I'm fine, child. Just plagued by memories. You're cleaning the pig shack now? The walls need a good scrubbing.
Sabruki said.
The pigs do so like it to be clean. Well, Jeremy and Ezekiel prefer it that way. The others don't seem to care. You don't need to clean so hard, child. I like doing it. It feels good. It's something I can do to help. Oh, she's so sweet.
Oh.
And damaged. Poor gal.
But she likes pigs.
She's still a child. Yeah, she's still a child. She's just like, and she's, I wonder if the pigs had names beforehand. So.
Well, it was better to clean the walls than stare blankly at them all day. Today, Silence was happy for anything that kept the child busy. Anything, so long as she didn't enter the common room.
I think the pigs will like it. Why don't you keep at it in here for a while?
Sabruki eyed her.
What's wrong?
Shadows. She was so observant.
There are some men with rough tongues in the common room.
Silence said.
I won't have you picking up their cussing. I'm not a child, Aunt Silence. Yes, you are.
Silence said firmly.
And you'll obey. Don't think I won't take a switch to your backside.
Sabruki rolled her eyes but went back to work and began humming to herself. Silence let a little of her grandmother's ways out when she spoke with Sabruki, The child responded well to sternness. She seemed to crave it, perhaps as a symbol that someone was in control. Silence wished she actually were in control. She was a Four Scout, the surname taken by her grandparents and the others who had left homeland first and explored this continent. Yes, she was a Four Scout, and she'd be damned before she'd let anyone know how absolutely powerless she felt much of the time. So, I guess Pilgrims was a very
Was the
apt
word.
description, yeah. And we've got the name Ezekiel, so the flavors coming to mind. Silence crossed the backyard of the large inn, noting William Ann inside the kitchen mixing a paste to dissolve in the beer. Silence passed her by and looked in on the stable. Unsurprisingly, Chesterton had said they'd be leaving after their meal. While a lot of folks sought the relative safety of a way stop at night, Chesterton and his men would be accustomed to sleeping in the forests. Even with the shades about, they would feel more comfortable in a camp of their own devising than they would in a way stop bed. Inside the stable, Dobb, the old stable hand, had just finished brushing down the horses. He wouldn't have watered them. Silence had a standing order to not do that until last.
Okay, because she's got to try and make the horses least of a that her victims. I don't know. It's on purpose. That's basically what that wants. That bit of writing wants us to know.
This is well done, Dob. Why don't you take your break now?
He nodded to her with a mumbled, "Thank you, ma'am." He'd find the front porch in his pipe as always. Dob hadn't two wits to rub together, and he hadn't a clue about what she really did at the way stop, but he'd been with her since before William's death. He was as loyal a man as she'd ever found. Silence shut the door after him, then fetched some pouches from the locked cabinet at the rear of the stable. She checked each one in the dim light, then set them on the grooming table and heaved the first saddle onto its owner's back. She was near finished with the saddling when the door eased open. She froze immediately, thinking of the pouches on the table. Why hadn't she stuffed them in her apron? Sloppy! "Silence, Four Scout," a smooth voice said from the doorway. Silence stifled a groan and turned to confront her visitor.
"Theophilus,"
she said.
"It's not polite to sneak about on a woman's property. I should have you thrown out for trespassing."
Now, that would be rather like the horse kicking at the man who feeds him, Theophilus leaned his gangly frame against the doorway, folding his arms. He wore simple clothing, no markings of his station. A Fort tax collector often didn't want random passers to know of his profession. Clean-shaven, his face always had that same patronizing smile. His clothing was too clean, too new to be that of one who lived out in the forests. Not that he was a dandy, nor was he a fool. Theophilus was dangerous, just a different kind of dangerous from most.
Why are you here, Theophilus?
She said, hefting the last saddle onto the back of a snorting roan gelding. Why do I always come to you, Silence? It's not because of your cheerful countenance,
I'm paid up on taxes.
That's because you're mostly exempt from taxes, Theophilus said. But you haven't paid me for last month's shipment of silver.
Things have been a little dry lately. It's coming.
And the bolts for your crossbow? Theophilus asked. One wonders if you're trying to forget about the price of those silver bolt heads, And the shipment of replacement sections for your protection rings. His whining accent...
Hold it.
Oh, no, he has an accent. I didn't... That's fine.
You weren't how would you know? How would you know? What's it? And we've got protection rings, so there's some sort of protection ring thing instead of the shade of her husband being the protection.
Yes. That's because
he... Yeah. His whining accent. You were at his whining accent.
Yes. His whining accent made her wince as she buckled the saddle on. Theopolis. Shadows, what a day. Oh my, Theopolis said, walking over to the grooming table. He picked up one of the pouches. What are these now? That looks like wet leak sap. I've heard that it glows at night if you shine on the right kind of light upon it. Is this one of the White Fox's mysterious secrets? She snatched the pouch away.
Don't say that name,
she hissed. He grinned. You have a bounty. Delightful. I have always wondered how you tracked them. Poke a pinhole in that, attach it to the underside of the saddle, then follow the dripping trail as it leaves. Poke a pinhole in that, attach it to the underside of the saddle, then follow the dripping trail as it leaves. You could probably track them a long way, kill them far from here. Keep suspicion off the little way stop. Yes, Theopolis was dangerous, but she needed someone to turn in her bounties for her. Theopolis was a rat, and like all rats, he knew the best holes, troughs, and crannies. He had connections in Lastport, and had managed to get her the money in the name of the White Fox without revealing her. So she is the White Fox.
Mm-hmm. She's the legend.
Excellent. I've been tempted to turn you in lately, you know, Theopolis said. Many a group keeps a betting pool on the identity of the infamous Fox. I could be a rich man with this knowledge,
You're already a rich man,
she snapped.
And though you're many things, you are not an idiot. This has worked just fine for a decade. Don't tell me you trade wealth for a little notoriety.
He smiled, but did not contradict her. He kept half of what she earned from each bounty. It was a fine arrangement for Theopolis, no danger to him, which was how she knew he liked it. He was a civil servant, not a bounty hunter. The only time she'd seen him kill, the man he'd murdered couldn't fight back.
Great honorable man.
Yeah. Rat, snake. Don't like this guy. I also hate this accent I've chosen. But I'm stuck with it now.
You're stuck with it now.
You know me too well, Silence, Theopolis said with a laugh. Too well indeed. My, a bounty. I wonder who it is. I'll have to go look in the common room.
You'll do nothing of the sort. Shadows. You think the face of a tax collector won't spook them? Don't you go walking in and spoiling things.
Peace, Silence, he said, still grinning. I obey your rules. I am careful not to show myself around here often, and I don't bring suspicion to you. I couldn't stay today anyway. I merely came to give you an offer. Only now you probably won't need it. Ah, such a pity. After all, the trouble I went to in your name, She felt cold.
What help could you possibly give me?
He took a sheet of paper from his satchel, then carefully unfolded it with 2 long fingers. He moved to hold it up, but she snatched it from him.
What is this?
A way to relieve you of your debt, Silence. A way to prevent you from ever having to worry again. The paper, say this for Ulam.
Okay.
Noted. Remind me.
Well, so we can't change it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you do.
The paper was a writ of seizure, an authorization for Silence's creditors, Theopolis, to claim her property as payment. The forts claimed jurisdiction over the roadways and the land to either side of them. They did send soldiers out to patrol them, occasionally.
I take it back, Theopolis.
She spat.
You most certainly are a fool. You'd give up everything we have for a greedy land snatch?
Of course not, Silence. This wouldn't be giving up anything at all. Why, I do feel bad seeing you constantly in my debt. Wouldn't it be more efficient if I took over the finances of the waste stop? You would remain working here and hunting bounties as you always have. Only you would no longer have to worry about your debts, She crumpled the paper in her hand.
You turned me and mine into slaves, Theopolis.
Oh, don't be so dramatic. Those in last port have begun to... Yes. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Those in last port have begun to worry that such an important waypoint as this is owned by an unknown element. You are drawing attention. Silence. I should think that this is the last thing you want. Silence crumpled the paper further in her hand, fists tight. Horses shuffled in their stalls. Theopolis grinned. So, to clarify, because I've been having so much fun doing this voice, he's threatening to take her land. That's what's happening, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. Like this arrangement's over. Where I'm gonna take your land, and hey, yeah, he's in the position of power here.
And
so why not?
she's in debt to him?
Yeah, somehow because of this piece of paper, basically. But this is news to her now. She must have known it was an option, but he now has it written.
But it sounded like the White Fox is quite lucrative, so what debt if... Well,
Why
I'm
is
sure
she in
we'll
debt?
find out.
Yeah.
Unless it's some sort of bluff. Oh, yes. She bought the silver and silver bullets. But how much could that realistically cost, such that it would cost her farm land? Unless silver is uniquely rare. I imagine it would be if it were used against shades, etc. Anyway. Well, perhaps it would be... Excuse me. Well, perhaps it won't be needed. Perhaps this bounty of yours is a big one, Any clues to give me so I don't sit wondering all day?
Get out,
she whispered. Dear Silence, 4 Scout blood stubborn to the last breath. They say your grandparents were the first of the first people to come scout this continent, the first to homestead the forests, the first to stake a claim on hell itself.
Don't call the forests that. This is my home.
But it is how men saw this land before the evil. Doesn't that make you curious? Hell, land of the damned, where the shadows of the dead made their home. I keep wondering, is there really a shade of your departed husband guarding this place? Or is it just another story you tell people to make them feel safe? You spend a fortune in silver, that offers the real protection, and I never have been able to find a record of your marriage. Of course, if there wasn't one, that would make dear William and...
Ooh. Go!
He grinned, but tipped his hat to her and stepped out. She heard him climb into the saddle, then ride off. Night would soon fall. It was probably too much to hope that the shades would take Theopolis. She'd long suspected that he had a hiding hole somewhere near, probably a cavern he kept lined with silver. She breathed in and out, trying to calm herself. Theopolis was frustrating, but he didn't know everything. She forced her attention back to the horses and got out a bucket of water. She dumped the contents of the pouches into it, then gave a hearty dose to the horses, who each drank thirstily.
Okay, so that's why we leave the drinking for later, for the last thing.
Indeed.
So does that make their poopies glow?
What has this stream become? Glowing poopies. Pouches that dripped sap in the way Theopolis indicated would be too easy to spot. What would happen when her bounties removed their saddles at night and found the pouches? They'd know someone was coming for them. No, she needed something less obvious.
How am I going to manage this?
She whispered as a horse drank from her buckets.
Shadows,
Bucket.
they're reaching...
Sorry.
Shadows, they're reaching for me on all sides. Kill Theopolis.
That was probably what grandmother would have done. She considered it,
No,
she thought.
I won't become that. I won't become her.
Theophilus was a thug and a scoundrel, but he had not broken any laws, nor had he done anyone direct harm that she knew. There had to be rules, even out here. There had to be lines. Perhaps in that respect, she wasn't so different from the fort folk. She'd find another way.
She's got a code. She's got a code.
She does have a code.
Yeah, she's like, okay, if you're not you're not a bad guy, like a killer, then you don't get killed. Nice.
And the fenweed is just supposed to knock them out, not kill them. So maybe she's only ever turned them in. Maybe she doesn't actually assassinate them.
She's Batman.
Or, murder. She's Batman. Lady Batman. She'd find another way. Theophilus only had a writ of debt. He had been required to show it to her. That meant she had a day or two to come up with his money, all neat and orderly. In the fort cities, they claimed to have civilization. Those rules gave her a chance. She left the stable. A glance through the window into the common room showed her William Ann delivering drinks to the merchants of Chesterton's gang. Silence stopped to watch. Behind her, the forests shivered in the wind. Silence listened, then turned to face them. You could tell fort folk by the way they refused to face the forests. They averted their eyes, never looking into the depths. Those solemn trees covered almost every inch of this continent, those leaves shading the ground. Still, silent. Animals lived out there, but fort surveyors declared that there were no predators. The shades had gotten those long ago, drawn by the shedding of blood. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, hun. As like Taylor said, this world sucks. This is hell. Sounds quite hellish. Yeah, Zebus, the force of hell indeed.
So, the shades are attracted to blood.
Mm-hmm.
They have hunted the predators. So surely that might mean that there's an overabundance of the other kind, not predators.
Prey.
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you. Don't know why it escaped me. Bad forest management, overpopulation.
Yeah, the ecosystem is all crazy. But I guess if people keep coming in there, the shades are good. And I guess shades probably don't work like normal animals. They're probably immortal. You can probably kill them, as in, but they don't age out. Oh, that would make even more of an ecological nightmare if they don't die at any rate. Anyway.
Staring into the forests seemed to make them retreat. The darkness of their depths withdrew the stillness. Okay. The darkness of their depths withdrew. The stillness gave way to the sound of rodents picking through fallen leaves. A forescout knew to look the forests straight on. A forescout knew that the surveyors were wrong. There was a predator out there. The forest itself was one.
Ooh, spook, spook.
Cool line. The forest is a character.
Mm-hmm. Do we have
Silence
here? Sorry.
Go on.
I was just another Lord of the Rings thing. I'm just like, are there ents that will come and help people? Anyway.
I am on nobody's side because no one is on my side.
Freebeard.
Silence turned and walked to the door into the kitchen. Keeping the waystop had to be her first goal, so she was committed to collecting Chesterton's bounty now. If she couldn't pay Theophilus, she had little faith that everything would stay the same. He'd have a hand around her throat, as she couldn't leave the waystop. She had no fort citizenship, and times were too tight for the local homesteaders to take her in. Interesting note about the name Theophilus and the role that he seems to be playing thus far in this story. And then at some point I want to talk about silence, but polis, that's city. So Theopolis he is a tax collector. He seems to be a representative of this civilization that Silence is apart from. So it seems to be an exceptionally appropriate name for him to be that representative, Theopolis.
It makes sense. But he's
yeah.
still a rat. But hey, there's lots of rats in cities, etc.
Yes. And then Silence. I'm sure there's something very poignant about that name for her.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what. I suspect I'll have a better idea as the story goes on, but I think it might have something to do with the forest.
Oh yeah. Well, what are the names like in this 4-Scout family? Is there something like that? Is there some other way that they name people or reason they name people a certain thing there? So interesting.
Well, Silence isn't her real name, isn't it? I think she said something earlier about having a different, at least last name. Well, anyway. She had no fort citizenship, and times were too tight for the local homesteaders to take her in. No, she'd have to stay and work the way stop for Theopolis, and he would squeeze her dry, taking larger and larger percentages of the bounties. She pushed open the door to the kitchen. Sabruki sat at the kitchen table holding the crossbow in her lap. Oh no, what happened?
Jesus. God beyond!
Silence gasped, pulling the door closed as she stepped inside.
Child, what are you...
Sabruki looked up at her. Those haunted eyes were back, eyes void of life and emotion, eyes like a shade's.
We have visitors, Aunt Silence,
Sabruki said in a cold, monotone voice. The
Sorry.
crossbow's winding... What?
It wasn't a cold, monotonous voice, but whatever.
Well, do it again, but better, Kitty. Or, not, if you don't want to.
we have visitors, Aunt Silence.
Sabruki said in a cold, monotone voice. The crossbow's winding crank sat next to her. She had managed to load the thing and cock it, all on her own.
I coated the bolt's tip with black blood. I did that right, didn't I? That way the poison will kill him for sure.
Is she possessed?
She's...
Go on. You think?
No, she's just traumatized. So she's involved with those people. So like, remember you said, what's it? Oh no, it's not necessarily these people that have caused her trauma, but she's found them. Well, we'll see.
But Taylor Lita says, I think they're based on Protestant names, some religions. Chesterton's men used names like Ernest and Amity, so stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely see that in William Ann and Ezekiel. I'm just appreciating the
subtleties.
Theopolis of it.
The Theopolis of it all.
Anyway, Sabruki.
Child.
Silence stepped forward. Sabruki turned the crossbow in her lap, holding it at an angle to support it. One small hand on the trigger. The point turned towards Silence.
Whoa!
Sabruki stared ahead, eyes blank. The trauma, but also the possession.
This won't work, Sabruki.
Silence said, stern.
If you were able to lift that thing into the common room, you wouldn't hit him. And even if you did, his men would kill us all in retribution. I wouldn't mind.
Sabruki said softly.
So long as I got to kill him. So long as I pulled the trigger.
Jesus. She's 8, guys!
Oh.
You care nothing for us?
Silence snapped.
I take you in, give you a home, and this is your payment. You steal a weapon? You threaten me?
Sabruki blinked.
What is wrong with you?
Silence said.
You'd shed blood in this place of sanctuary, bring the shades down upon us, beating at our protections. If they got through, they'd kill everyone under my roof. People are promised safety. How dare you?
Sabruki shook as if coming awake. Her mask broke and she dropped the crossbow. Silence heard a snap and the catch released. She felt the bolt pass within an inch of her cheek, then break the window behind. Ooh, okay. So first off, that's going to make noise. That could alert them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what a waste of good poison.
Yeah. Well, and just lucky it didn't hit her in any way. So.
Shadows. Had the bolt grazed Silence?
Ooh.
Had Sabruki drawn blood? Silence reached up with a shaking hand, but blessedly felt no blood. The bolt hadn't hit her.
Okay.
A moment... Okay, so that's good.
Still, noise
later...
is the next thing to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. A moment later, Sabruki was in her arms, sobbing. Silence knelt down, holding the child close.
Hush, dear one. It's all right. It's all right. I heard it all,
Sabruki whispered.
Mother never cried out. She knew I was there. She was strong, Aunt Silence. That was why I could be strong, even when the blood came down, soaking my hair. I heard it. I heard it all.
Silence closed her eyes, holding Sabruki tight. She herself had been the only one willing to investigate the smoking homestead. Sabruki's father had stayed at the way stop on occasion. A good man. As good a man as was left after the evil took homeland, that was. As good a man as was left after the evil took homeland, that was. The evil.
We have the evil from earlier on, which actually, like, the story of the White Fox is that the White Fox has looked the evil in the face. And well, the White Fox does look at the forest directly, so we've got that connection.
Yeah.
Right.
In the smoldering... What?
Right. It's good.
Right. I don't know what to say to that, Kite, so I will continue reading.
Yeah, let's go.
In the smoldering remains of the homestead, Silence had found the corpses of 12 people. Each family member had been slaughtered by Chesterton and his men, right down to the children. The only one left had been Sabruki, the youngest, who had been shoved into the crawl space under the floorboards in the bedroom. So it is them. It is specifically them that Sabruki has a connection to.
But why? Okay, so he was a good man, and he had a homestead, and I suppose was in homeland.
And this was a year ago.
Yeah, so what business? And he's like some assassination dude. Why? What were they doing? Yeah. Like, why were they a target? Or was it just wanton violence? Yeah.
She'd lain there, soaked in her mother's blood, soundless, even as Silence found her. She'd only discovered the girl because Chesterton had been careful, lining the room with silver dust to protect against shades as he prepared to kill. Silence had tried to recover some of the dust that had trickled between the floorboards and had run across eyes staring up at her through the slits. Chesterton had burned 13 different homesteads over the last year, over 50 people murdered. Sabruki was the only one who had escaped him.
Jeez. He was a mass murderer. I hate him.
Yeah, I don't like him.
I mean,
the girl trembled as she heaved with sobs. What?
I didn't like him before. I mean, we knew what else he had done, but like, I just having this whole explanation is it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I briefly contemplated whether or not there was going to be some sort of reveal that involves him being a good guy. I don't think that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The girl trembled as she heaved with sobs.
Why? Why? There is no reason. I'm sorry.
What else could she do? Offer some foolish platitude or comfort about the god beyond? These were the forests. You didn't survive on platitudes. Silence did hold the girl until her crying began to subside. William Ann entered, then stilled beside the kitchen table holding a tray of empty mugs. Her eyes flickered toward the fallen crossbow, then at the broken window.
You'll kill him?
Sabruki whispered.
You'll bring him to justice? Justice died in Homeland. But yes, I'll kill him. I promise it to you, child.
Stepping timidly, William Ann picked up the crossbow, then turned it, displaying its now broken bow. Silence breathed out. She should never have left the thing where Sabruki could get to it.
Child-proof your homes, people.
Especially if you have weapons.
Yeah.
And especially if you have children.
Yeah, that works.
Care for the patron. Care for the patrons, William Ann.
Silence said.
I'll take Sabruki upstairs.
William Ann nodded, glancing at the broken window again.
No blood was shed.
Silence said.
We will be fine. Though if you get a moment, see if you can find the bolt. The head is silver. Yeah, jeez, I don't know if you get a moment. I think that's now. Do that right now.
You know, it totally went over my head. Like when I
so to speak.
saw her concern about blood, I thought that was because of the poison-tipped arrow. But then it just dawned on me, oh wait, the shadows are attracted to blood. That could have been way worse than I had anticipated.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's not that wouldn't be a problem. It's that would compound the problem because she's now somewhat poisoned and the shades are coming after the blood. And it seems like it's a rather instantaneous thing. It's like, okay, I suppose the guy was gonna, what's his name, Chesterton was gonna kill, he puts a silver powder to kind of keep them, the shades from coming immediately there. There's going to be a lot of blood if you're going to murder a whole family.
William Ann nodded, glancing at the broken window again.
Where are we? Oh, no blood was shed. We will be fine. Though if you get a moment, see if you can find the bolt. The head is silver.
This was hardly a time when they could afford to waste money. William Ann stowed the crossbow in the pantry as Silence carefully set Sabruki on a kitchen stool. The girl clung to her, refusing to let go, so Silence relented and held her for a time longer. William Ann took a few deep breaths as if to calm herself, then pushed back out into the common room to distribute drinks. So did they already drink the drinks, or have they not? Because I kind of feel like they're going to notice something's strange.
Was she just... Where did she come from?
This isn't going to be... Okay, prediction. They are going to know what's up. They are going to flee into the forests. Sabruki's going to go after them, and then Silence is going to go after her. Prediction.
Okay, I'm not on the Sabruki goes after them. I think she's done with her attempt. I'm hoping.
Okay.
She's clinging to Silence right now.
Yeah, I'd fall back on your prediction. Perhaps I went too far into that. But I do think Chesterton and the gang are going to go into the forest.
Yeah, there is going to be some sort of chase, and it's not going to be exactly as planned how she's going to take them down.
Yeah. William Ann took a few deep breaths as if to calm herself, then pushed back out into the common room to distribute drinks. Eventually, Sabruki let go long enough for Silence to mix a draught. She carried the girl up the stairs to the loft above the common room, where the three of them made their beds. She carried the girl up the stairs to the loft above the common room, where the three of them made their beds. Dobbs slept in the stable and the guests in the nicer rooms on the second floor.
You're going to make me sleep,
Sabruki said, regarding the cup with reddened eyes.
The world will seem a brighter place in the morning,
Silence said.
And I can't risk you sneaking out after me tonight. Okay,
well, so there goes my prediction.
Yeah, so she would sneak after her. I suppose she knows the child best. So she would go after her to help her, I suppose, because I can help, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The girl reluctantly took the draught, then drank it down.
I'm sorry about the crossbow. We will find a way for you to work off the cost of fixing it.
That seemed to comfort Sabruki. She was a homesteader, forests born.
You used to sing to me at night. I'm not singing.
Oh, come on, Sabruki said, softly closing her eyes, lying back.
When you first brought me here, after...
She swallowed.
I was certain you noticed.
Was not certain.
Oh, I wasn't certain you know. Sorry. I didn't notice. Yeah. I wasn't certain you noticed.
Silence hadn't been certain Sabruki noticed anything during those times.
I did.
Silence sat down on the stool beside Sabruki's cot. She didn't feel like singing, so she began humming. It was the lullaby she'd sung to William Ann during the hard times right after her birth. Before long, the words came out unbidden.
Oh, come on.
This is a very special reading.
No. I think let's not upset everybody with it, but I'm just hush now, my dear one. Be not afraid. You can sing it, Dorcas.
I do it once, will you do it once? Mutually assured destruction?
No.
Wow.
Okay, fine.
Look, if you don't want to do it, I won't make you, but I would really love it if you did it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. However you want to do it, if you want to say it, go for it.
Zebras, thanks. No, I didn't warm up my voice or anything, and last time I sang was many moons ago. And
One
when I
day
think
we'll
of
do karaoke in the Discord.
Yeah, that's and I'll sing the lullaby from what is it? I was going to say Prince of Persia, Prince of Egypt. Okay, I can't do it.
At least say the line then. I won't make you do it.
Yeah. Hush now, my dear one. Be not afraid. Night comes upon us, but sunlight will break. Sleep now, my dear one. Let your fears fade. Darkness surrounds us. Let your tears fade. Sorry. Darkness surrounds us, but someday we'll wake.
Okay, let me go over that text because I bet that's going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Warning, you're going to have to sing for Word of Radiance, Kitte.
Nope.
I'll work on her, guys, I promise.
Get AI to sing it.
True story, I was warming up for this stream with some Phantom of the Opera beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll work on her. Okay. Hush now, my dear one. Be not afraid. Night comes upon us, but sunlight will break. Sleep now, my dear one. Let your tears fade. Darkness surrounds us, but someday we'll wake. There's something about that last line specifically that makes me feel like this whole story is a dream or a nightmare of some kind that they all need to wake up from. I want to apply this lullaby to the whole story or all the characters in some way.
For me, the thing that that resonates with me is literally life is but a dream kind of thing. And it's just because of Wheel of Time, there's people that call death waking from the dream. So someday we'll wake, to me, is like someday we'll die.
Yes.
And we've got Taylor saying, almost like the God beyond will remember their plight eventually. When he gets to it, huh? You know?
He's a very busy God beyond.
Yeah, what do you want?
She held Sabruki's hand until the child fell asleep. The window by the bed overlooked the courtyard, so Silence could see as Dobb brought out Chesterton's horses. 5 men in their fancy merchant clothing stomped down off the porch and climbed into their saddles. They rode in a file out onto the roadway, and the forests enveloped them. Okay, so presumably they did drink the poison, but they I assumed it would make them sort of pass out, but I guess it won't take effect until after they've gone into the forest. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
she
neat.
doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't want them to pass out in the common room. So that's got to be. They've got to at least be drowsy and go to their first camp of the night, basically. Well, their camp of the night.
Yeah. It'll make them put them into a deeper sleep when they eventually get to it. And now we get a new time shift. 1 hour after nightfall, Silence packed her rucksack by the light of the hearth. Her grandmother had kindled that hearth's flame, and it had been burning ever since. She'd nearly lost her life lighting the fire, but she hadn't been willing to pay any of the fire merchants for a start. Silence shook her head. Grandmother always had bucked convention, but then, was Silence any better?
Don't kindle flame. Don't shed the blood of another. Don't run at night. These things draw shades.
The simple rules by which every homesteader lived. She'd broken all three on more than one occasion. It was a wonder she hadn't been withered away into a shade by now. The fire's warmth seemed a distant thing as she prepared to kill. Silence glanced at the old shrine, really just a closet that she kept locked. The flames reminded her of her grandmother. At times she thought of the fire as her grandmother. Well, fire means life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
But kindling a life attracts the shades. So you can have your fire, but the kindling of fire attracts shades.
Maybe it's the noise from the kindling?
Mm.
And the fire never went out, yeah?
Yeah,
that's what that said?
yeah, because you don't need to. The kindling is the thing that does it. So it seems like just having it burn constantly is the safest way. But I mean, since that's a long time to keep something going. Fire burning on the dance floor. Sorry, making it even worse.
Oh, sure, you won't sing a lullaby, but that?
Yeah, that's what I bring.
I think the Temple of Vesta had a fire that was supposed to never go out, or if it did, it was seen as a terrible, terrible omen.
There's lots of religious things that yeah. Rome, the series, or just Rome in general?
In Rome. The Temple of Vesta in Rome. Defiant of both the shades and the forts right until the end. The flames reminded her of her grandmother. At times, she thought of the fire as her grandmother, defiant of both the shades and the forts right until the end. She'd purged the way stop of other reminders of grandmother, all save the shrine to the god beyond. That was set behind a locked door beside the pantry, and next to the door had once hung her grandmother's silver dagger, symbol of the old religion.
Ooh, we had that in the what's the name? In the symbol
art.
In the beginning. Yeah, in the art.
Yeah,
and in the art.
That's a silver dagger. Oh, I'm looking at the art again, and now I see two sets of eyes rather than just the one. Okay, now it's making more sense. Scary.
Oh yeah, Silence has a limp, so she's seen some things. She didn't just fall down the stairs for that, I think.
Almost. What almost, Phoebus?
The singing, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. That dagger was etched with the symbols of divinity as a warding. Silence now carried it in a sheath at her side, not for its wardings, but because it was silver. One could never have too much silver in the forests. She packed the sack carefully, first putting in her medicine kit, and then a good-sized pouch of silver dust to heal withering. She followed that with 10 empty sacks of thick burlap, tarred on the side to prevent their contents from leaking. Finally, she added an oil lamp. She wouldn't want to use it, as she didn't trust fire. Fire could draw shades. However, she'd found it useful to have on prior outings, so she brought it. She'd only light it if she ran across someone who already had a fire started. Once done, she hesitated, then went to the old storage room. She removed the floorboards and took out the small, dry-packed keg that lay beside the poisons. Gunpowder.
Ooh.
Mother?
William Ann asked, causing her to jump. She hadn't heard the girl enter the kitchen. Silence nearly dropped the keg in her startlement, and that nearly stopped her heart. She cursed herself for a fool, tucking the keg under her arm. It couldn't explode without fire. She knew that much.
Mother!
William Ann said, looking at the keg.
I probably won't need it. But I know. Hush.
It's Chekhov's gunpowder. She walked over and placed the keg into her sack, attached to the side of the keg with cloth stuffed between the metal arms. It was her grandmother's fire starter. Attached to the side of the keg with cloth stuffed between the metal arms was her grandmother's fire starter. Igniting the gunpowder counted as kindling flames, at least in the eyes of the shades. It drew them almost as quickly as blood did, day or night. The early refugees from homeland had discovered that in short order. In some ways, blood was easier to avoid. A simple nosebleed or issue of blood wouldn't draw the shades. They wouldn't even notice. It had to be the blood of another, shed by your hands, and they would go for the one who shed the blood first. Of course, after that person was dead, they often didn't care who they killed next. Once enraged, shades were dangerous to all nearby. Maybe these shades are attracted to violence.
Yeah, they're attracted to violence, to killing violence itself, killing itself. And they go for the one to evil. They're going for the one that commits the crime. Interesting. And then it enrages them. Are they? So violence enrages them, or does it get them into like this feeding frenzy? But they've used the word enraged. Like, are they? That I don't think it's because they have a great sense of justice.
No,
I think it's an instinct.
Maybe they're like sharks.
Yeah.
Manifestations of an evil act. Mm-hmm. Although why would starting a fire be an evil act?
Well, we're in the forests of hell. There might be a connection.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. Very good catch. Only after Silence had the gunpowder packed did she notice that William Ann was dressed for traveling in trousers and boots. She carried a sack like Silence's.
What do you think you're about, William Ann?
Silence asked.
You intend to kill 5 men who had only half a dose of fenweed by yourself, Mother? I've done similar before. I've learned to work on my own. Only because you didn't have anyone else to help.
William Ann slung her sack onto her shoulder.
That's no longer the case. You're too young. Go back to bed. Watch the way stop until I return.
William Ann showed no signs of budging. I'm going to say, hot take, she should go with someone.
Yeah.
Because these guys are uniquely dangerous.
Yeah. Look, I feel like it's necessary, but I understand her hesitation. She's just being a mom.
Yeah. William Ann showed no signs of budging.
Child, I've told you. Mother?
William Ann said, taking her arm firmly.
You aren't a youth anymore. You think I don't see your limp getting worse? You can't do everything by yourself. You're going to have to start letting me help you sometime, damn it.
Silence regarded her daughter. Where had that fierceness come from? It was hard to remember that William Ann, too, was for Scout stock. Grandmother would have been disgusted by her, and that made Silence proud. William Ann had actually had a childhood. She wasn't weak. She was just normal. A woman could be strong without having the emotions of a brick.
Aw, I love that. That's a great line.
Yeah.
Don't you cuss at your mother.
Silence finally told the girl. William Ann raised an eyebrow.
I like that. That's a great response. What are you going to do about it? You may come.
Silence said, prying her arm out of her daughter's grip.
But you will do as you are told.
William Ann let out a deep breath, then nodded eagerly.
I'll warn Dob we're going.
She walked out, adopting the natural, slow step of a homesteader as she entered the darkness. Even though she was within the protection of the Waystop's silver rings, she knew to follow the simple rules. Ignoring them when you were safe led to lapses when you weren't. Silence got out 2 bowls, then mixed 2 different types of glow paste. When finished, she poured them into separate jars, which she packed into her sack. She stepped outside into the night. The air was crisp, chill. The forests had gone silent. The shades were out, of course. Ominous.
Scary. Can we just get daylight now, please? Come on.
And good line about safety lapses. Meticulous. Important. A few of them moved. Go on.
That would be that would be difficult. Like, you know that the shades and things are out, but attracting, like running, attracts them. So
the shades were out, of course. A few of them moved across the grassy ground, visible by their own soft glow. Ethereal, translucent. The ones nearby right now were old shades. They barely had human forms any longer. The heads rippled, faces shifting like smoke rings. They trailed waves of whiteness about an arm's length behind them. Silence had always imagined that as the tattered remains of their clothing. No woman, not even a Force Scout, looked upon shades without feeling a coldness inside of her. They're Dementors. The shades were about during the day, of course. You just couldn't see them. Kindle fire, draw blood, and they'd come for you even then.
Oh,
no! See, that's annoying.
Yeah, like there is no time that you're good. And also then you can't see them in the daytime.
What?
So it's just, kindle, draw blood.
Why do people live here?
Exactly! What's the point? But they homestead here. It's like, but why?
Go someplace nicer. At night, though, they were different. Quicker to respond to infractions. At night, they also responded to rapid motions, which they never did during the day. Silence took out one of the glow paste jars, bathing the area around her in a pale green light. The light was dim, but was even and steady, unlike torchlight. Torches were unreliable, since you couldn't relight them if they went out. William Ann waited at the front of the lantern poles.
We will need to move quietly.
Silence told her while affixing the jars to the poles.
You may speak, but do so in a whisper. I said you will obey me. You will, in all things, immediately. These men we're after, they will kill you, or worse, without giving the deed a passing thought.
I also want to compare these shades to whatever mist thing Vin has been dealing with. That thought is in my mind. William Ann nodded.
You're not scared enough.
Silence said, slipping a black covering around the jar with the brighter glow paste that plunged them into darkness. But the star belt was high in the sky today. Some of that light would filter down through the leaves, particularly if they stayed near the road. William Ann began.
You remember when Harold's hound went mad last spring?
Silence asked.
Do you remember that look in the hound's eyes? No recognition? Eyes that lusted for the kill? Well, that's what these men are, William Ann. Rabid. They need to be put down, same as that hound. They won't see you as a person. They'll see you as meat. Do you understand?
William Ann nodded. Silence could see that she was still more excited than afraid. There was no helping that. Silence handed William Ann the pole with the darker glow paste. It had a faint blue light to it, but didn't illuminate much. Silence put the other pole to her right shoulder, sack over her left, then nodded toward the roadway. Nearby, a shade drifted toward the boundary of the way stop. When it touched the thin barrier of silver on the ground, the silver crackled like sparks and drove the thing backward with a sudden jerk. The shade floated the other way. Each touch like... What?
Sorry, I'm just thinking of like a Roomba. It's like, oh, can't. So then it just turns the other way. Okay, fine. Sorry. I'm just trying to make it funny so that I'm not scared, okay?
Zzz is the sound I imagined when it touched the... Each touch like that cost Silence money. The touch of a shade ruined silver. That was what her patrons paid for. A way stop whose boundary had not been broken in over 100 years, with a long-standing tradition that no unwanted shades were trapped within. Peace, of a sort. The best the forests offered. Idle bailiff. Go someplace. Oh, sweetheart, this is the nicer place. Don't mess with the evil.
Oh god.
Oh no. I'm totally blanking. Is silver an allomantic metal? What happens when you burn silver? Do we know?
I don't think we know.
Okay. Don't tell us unless it was answered in book 1 and I just am blanking on it, but I don't think so. Tin, copper, gold, aluminum, bronze, iron, pewter. No, I don't think silver. Duralumin, malatium. I don't think silver is on the list yet. The touch of a shade with silver. That was what her patrons paid for. A way stop whose boundary had not been broken in over 100 years, with a long-standing tradition that no unwanted shades were trapped within. Peace of a sort, the best the forests offered. Silver is not mentioned in the context of allomancy ferochemy in Final Empire. Great. Okay. Thank you. William Ann stepped across the boundary, which was marked by the curve of the large silver hoops jutting from the ground. They were anchored below by concrete, so you couldn't just pull one up. Replacing an overlapping section from one of the rings, she had three concentric ones surrounding her waist stop, required digging down and unchaining the section. It was a lot of work, which Silence knew intimately. But now I'm thinking like an arcanist. Indeed. A week didn't pass that they didn't rotate or replace one section or another. The shade nearby drifted away. Yeah, that's quite busy work.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, is it a metal? We need to know what it does.
The shade nearby drifted away. It didn't acknowledge them. Silence didn't know if regular people were invisible to them unless the rules were broken, or if the people just weren't worthy of attention until then. She and William Ann moved out onto the dark roadway, which was somewhat overgrown. No road in the forest was well maintained. Perhaps if the forts ever made good on their promises, that would change. Still, there was travel. Homesteaders traveling to one fort or another to trade food. The grains grown out in forest clearings were richer, tastier than what could be produced up in the mountains. Rabbits and turkeys, cotton snares, or raised in hutches could be sold for good silver. Okay, now we're getting some good reason to be out here. Good food. What haven't humans done for good food, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, we can live here. Come on. But also, if things are worse elsewhere, I just have to be afraid of these demon things. Fine.
I'm pretty sure people thought tomatoes were poisonous for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, bright red. That's usually a sign. Just don't eat that. Yeah.
I want tomatoes now. I want pizza now.
with a soft shell crab on top.
That's a reference to Kitte's channel, which I highly recommend you all go and subscribe to, by the way. She's got a wonderful channel where she does diagram streams and panel shows and gaming stuff.
Just absolute chaos over there. Yeah.
Very much so. But it's, what's the word? It's fun. Endearing chaos. Yeah. Rabbits and turkeys caught in snares or raised in hutches could be sold for good silver. Not hogs. Only someone in one of the forts would be so crass as to eat a pig. Anyway, there was trade, and that kept the roadway worn, even if the trees around did have a tendency to reach down their boughs, like grasping arms, to try to cover up the pathway, reclaim it. The forests did not like that people had infested them. The two women walked carefully and deliberately. No quick motions. Walking so, it seemed an eternity before something appeared on the road in front of them. Kitte?
Where are we? There!
William Ann whispered. Yes, that's where we are.
That's a whisper. There.
William Ann whispered. Silence released her tension in a breath. Something glowing blue marked the roadway in the light of the glow paste. Theopolis's guess at how she tracked her quarries had been a good one. Had been a good one. Anyway, but incomplete. Yes, the light of the paste, also known as Abraham's fire, did make drops of wet leek sap glow. By coincidence, wet leek sap also caused a horse's bladder to loosen.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, it takes a long time for a horse to pee. That's interesting. You would notice that. And you would notice how glowy the pee is. Anyway.
Kite is a horse expert, by the way, folks.
Absolute expert. But still, like, horses have large bladders, and it takes a long time for them to finish an excretion, I suppose. So, yeah, interesting. Okay, but here we go. Oh, peeing. They're peeing on the way. Okay.
Yes, the light of the paste, also known as Abraham's fire, did make drops of wet leek sap glow. By coincidence, wet leek sap also caused a horse's bladder to loosen. Silence inspected the line of glowing sap and urine on the ground. She'd been worried that Chesterton and his men would set off into the forest soon after leaving the way stop. That hadn't been likely, but still she'd worried. Now she was sure she had the trail. If Chesterton cut into the forests, he'd do it a few hours after leaving the way stop to be more certain their cover was safe. She closed her eyes and breathed a sigh of relief, then found herself offering a prayer of thanks by rote. She hesitated. Where had that come from? It had been a long time. It's the Holy Spirit. Holy Ghost? I don't know Christianity.
I don't know, but she saw the knife the dagger was from the old religion, and didn't seem like she cared too much for the old religion. She's like, oh, it's not mine. I just have this because it's silver. But then she's remembering it. Interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, the fact that she prayed is what I understand the Holy Ghost to be working through her. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she shook her head, rising and continuing down the road. By drugging all 5 horses, she got a steady sequence of markings to follow. Oh, did she? Okay, so she dosed the horses. Clever, smart.
That was in the stuff was in the buckets.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. That's what's happening, but also like it just sunk in. Neat. The forests felt dark this night. The light of the star belt above didn't seem to filter through the branches as well as it should. There seemed to be more shades than normal, prowling between the trunks of trees, glowing just faintly. William Ann clung to her lantern pole. The child had been out in the night before, of course. No homesteader looked forward to doing so, but none shied away from it either. You couldn't spend your life trapped inside, frozen by fear of the darkness. Live like that, and, well, you were no better off than the people in the forts. Life in the forests was hard, often deadly, but it was also free. Nice, good passage.
Yeah. Mother.
And when I say good passage, I also mean good, as in opposition to evil. This is a good passage.
Mother.
William Ann whispered as they walked.
Why don't you believe in God anymore?
Coming right off of a prayer. Okay, go on.
Is this really the time, girl?
William Ann looked down as they passed another line of urine glowing blue on the roadway.
You always say something like that. And I'm usually trying to avoid the question when you ask it. But
Silence said.
But I'm also not usually walking the forests at night. It just seems important to me now. You're wrong about me not being afraid enough. I can hardly breathe, but I do know how much trouble the way stop is in. You're always so angry after Master Theopolis visits. You don't change your border silver as often as you used to. 1 out of 2 days, you don't eat anything but bread. And you think this has to do with God? Why?
William Ann kept looking down.
Oh, shadows.
Silence thought.
She thinks we're being punished. Fool girl. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's you.
Fool girl, foolish as her father. They passed the old bridge, walking its rickety wooden planks. When the light was better, you could still pick out timbers from the new bridge down in the chasm below, representing the promises of the forts and their gifts, which always looked pretty but frayed before long. Sabruki's father had been one of those who had come put the old bridge back up.
That was a weird sentence.
Yeah.
I believe in the God beyond.
Silence said after they reached the other side.
But I don't worship.
Silence said.
But that doesn't mean I don't believe. The old books, they called this land the home of the damned. I doubt that worshipping does any good if you're already damned. That's all.
That's reasonable.
William, yeah, it's fair. I mean, it's, more about the action than... or
then it's consequences. Like you worship for the sake of worshiping. You don't worship to get a lighter sentence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the act is more about the ritual, but the belief is they're congruent. I don't know what I'm getting on. It's something I'm going to think about, though.
Do a think. Kidding.
Do a think. Which you can find over on that darn Chrysalis channel.
We've already plugged it.
William Ann didn't reply. They walked another good 2 hours. Silence considered taking a shortcut through the woods, but the risk of losing the trail and having to double back felt too dangerous. Besides, those markings glowing a soft blue-white in the unseen light of the glow paste, those were something real. A lifeline of light in the shadows all around. Those lines represented safety for her and her children. With both of them counting the moments between urine markings, they didn't miss the turnoff by much. A few minutes walking without seeing a mark, and they turned back without a word, searching the sides of the path. Silence had worried this would be the most difficult part of the hunt, but they easily found where the men had turned into the forests. A glowing hoofprint formed the sign. One of the horses had stepped in another's urine on the roadway, then tracked it into the forests. Okay, Silence set down her pack. What?
That's how it's working, and I've realized. Oh yes, it's the glow paste. So the urine doesn't just glow. You have to have the glow paste light from that on it.
Yeah. Silence set down her pack and opened it to retrieve her garrote.
Garrote.
I know what that is. I just can't say. What?
Yeah, no, I know what a garrote is, but I didn't know that's how you spell it. Okay.
Silence set down her pack and opened it to retrieve her garrote, then held a finger to her lips and motioned for William Ann to wait by the road. The girl nodded. Silence couldn't make out much of her features in the darkness, but she did hear the girl's breathing grow more rapid. Being a homesteader and accustomed to going out at night was one thing. Being alone in the forests... Silence took the blue glow paste jar and covered it with her handkerchief. Then she took off her shoes and stockings and crept out into the night. Each time she did this, she felt like a child again, going into the forests with her grandfather, toes in the dirt, testing for crackling leaves or twigs that would snap and give her away. She could almost hear his voice giving instructions, telling her how... Wait, this is about the grandfather? Okay, so this is the first mention of the grandfather. So that's neat.
Yeah, well, we knew that it was grandparents. We knew they're both, but now we've got the an experience with this grandfather.
Yes.
So they were both active in. I'm with you there. Like I was under the impression we just had more of the grandma. She was the one we spent time with, it seems. But yeah, now we get it. It was a joint education.
Indeed. Silence took the blue glow paste jar and covered it with her handkerchief. Then she took off her shoes and stockings and crept out into the night. Each time she did this, she felt like a child again, going into the forests with her grandfather, toes in the dirt, testing for crackling leaves or twigs that would snap and give her away. She could almost hear his voice giving instructions, telling her how to judge the wind and use the sound of rustling leaves to mask her as she crossed noisy patches. He loved the forests until the day they'd claimed him. Oh,
Never
sad.
called this. Yeah. Now we know what. Now we're getting to know why he calls this.
Oh,
Why
and
she
this is
said
him.
don't call it that. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Never call this land hell, he had said. Respect the land as you would a dangerous beast, but do not hate it. Shades slid through the trees nearby, almost invisible with nothing to illuminate them. She kept her distance, but even so, she occasionally turned to see one of the things drifting past her. Stumbling into a shade could kill you, but that kind of accident was uncommon. Unless enraged, shades moved away from people who got too close, as if blown by a soft breeze. So long as you were moving slowly, and you should be, you would be all right. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of parallels between this and Sixth of the Dusk and a chapter that Kite and I have yet to discuss and therefore will not discuss here until we've had that conversation.
Agreed.
Yeah. She kept the handkerchief around the jar except when she wanted to check specifically for any markings. Glow paste illuminated shades and shades that glowed too brightly might give warning of her approach. A groan sounded nearby. Silence froze, heart practically bursting from her chest. Shades made no sound. That had been a man. Tense, silent. She searched until she caught sight of him, well hidden in the hollow of a tree. He moved, massaging his temples. The headaches from William Mann's poison were upon him. Silence considered, then crept around the back of the tree. She crouched down and waited a painful 5 minutes for him to move. He reached up again, rustling the leaves. So how exactly does she plan on killing them without drawing blood? Is she going to force feed them a worse poison? Or
Yeah, I don't
what?
know how that works. Yeah, or wait, she's got silver paste so that that will counteract it. Not silver paste, silver dust. Yeah.
But the question is, so the shades can't cross silver, but would they be attracted to blood regardless? Like, I can't imagine making a silver circle around them would do all that much if she just like slits throats and starts pumping blood everywhere.
Yeah, they would be attracted, but would they be able to? Would they be repelled enough by silver dust? We shall see.
But like, if
sure.
but the blood is going to stay there, and eventually the dust will run out. Like enough shades will try to get past. So what happens when? I don't know.
But yeah, but I suppose if she's doing this kind of stealth attack, okay, if she goes in creep mode and does a little circle and then just stabs in the heart, that there's still going to be a lot of blood.
Yeah.
You can't really kill. Wait, or if you stab with a poisoned blade, maybe that helps. So just a little stab.
I think force feeding them the more deadly poison is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, if we're going to try and not go blood.
Yeah, I mean, she could also tie them up and try to bring them back alive. But I think she already.
She said she's getting preparing to kill, so she'd kill him.
Yeah, and it would probably be way too noisy, even during the day, to bound and gag all of them and get them back silently.
Yeah, that's right, Taylor. Somehow Chesterton did it where he murdered people and got away with it from the shades. Yeah.
True.
We'll get a close demonstration, I'm sure.
Yeah. She kept the handkerchief around the jar except when she wanted to check specifically for any markings. Glow paste illuminated shades, and shades that glowed too brightly might give warning of her approach. A groan sounded nearby. Silence froze, heart practically bursting from her chest. Shades made no sound. That had been a man. Tense, silent, she searched until she caught sight of him, well hidden in the hollow of a tree. He moved, massaging his temples. The headaches from William Mann's poison were upon him. Silence considered, then crept around the back of the tree. She crouched down, then waited a painful 5 minutes for him to move. He reached up again, rustling the leaves. This reminds me of Acolytes. You have to kill a Jedi without a weapon.
Oh no, stop it. But also, duh, she had a garrote. Duh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We didn't even think about that.
Yes.
I'm glad that both of us didn't think about it for once.
Silence snapped forward and looped her garrote around his neck, then pulled tight. Strangling wasn't the best way to kill a man in the forests. It was so slow. The guards started to thrash, clawing at his throat. Shades nearby halted.
Yeah, that's a lot of movement. That's gonna... But anyway, it's not blood.
Yeah. Silence pulled tighter. Although if you pull too tightly, that could dig in and cause... Oh. Silence pulled tighter. The guard, weakened by the poison, tried to kick at her with his legs. She shuffled backwards, still holding tightly, watching those shades. They looked around like animals sniffing the air. A few of them started to dim, their own faint natural luminescence fading, their forms bleeding from white to black. Not a good sign. Silence felt her heartbeat like thunder inside.
Die, damn you.
Just waiting for us to remember.
You waited a long time, Zebus.
Yeah. The man finally stopped jerking, motions growing more lethargic. After he trembled one final time and fell still, Silence waited there for a painful eternity, holding her breath. Finally, the shades nearby faded back to white, then drifted off in their meandering directions. This would be such a great rogue stealth game, like a video game.
A lot of what Sanderson has created would make great games, like a Mistborn game. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She unwound the garrote, breathing out in relief. After a moment to get her bearings, she left the corpse and crept back to William Ann. The girl did her proud. She'd hidden herself so well that Silence didn't see her until she whispered,
Mother?
Yes.
Thank the God beyond.
William Ann said, crawling out of the hollow where she'd covered herself in leaves. She took Silence by the arm, trembling.
You found them? Killed the man on watch.
Silence said with a nod.
The other 4 should be sleeping. This is where I'll need you. I'm ready. Follow.
They moved back along the path Silence had taken. They passed the heap of the lookout's corpse, and William Ann inspected it, showing no pity.
It's one of them,
she whispered.
I recognize him. Of course it's one of them.
That would be so cool, and I would never touch it because I'm an Wenny.
A weenie? A Winnie? Weenie? Why? You would. We would force you, Taylor.
Indeed. Okay, please do that interaction again, Kite.
It's one of them. I recognize him. Of course it's one of them. I just wanted to be sure, since we're,
Not far beyond the guard post, they found the camp. 4 men in bedrolls slept amid the shades, as only true forest-born would ever try. They had set a small jar of glow paste at the center of the camp, inside a pit so it wouldn't glow too brightly and give them away, but it was enough light to show the horses tethered a few feet away on the other side of the camp. The green light also showed William Ann's face, and Silence was shocked to see not fear, but intense anger in the girl's expression. She had taken quickly to being a protective older sister to Sabruki. She was ready to kill, after all.
Yeah, if you can. Do it.
Taylor, I know you play League of Legends. That is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, gamer.
Yeah. Also, who do you main? I've been meaning to ask you. Silence gestured toward the rightmost man, and William Ann nodded. This was the dangerous part. On only a half dose, any of these men could still wake to the noise of their partners dying. Silence took one of the burlap sacks from her pack and handed it to William Ann, then removed her hammer. It wasn't some war weapon like her grandfather had spoken of, just a simple tool for pounding nails or other things. So, what?
She's gonna be pounding nails and think that
that would suggest
way.
that the noise of the fire starters is not what draws the
it's the fact that it's a fire thing.
Yeah. Silence took one of the burlap sacks from her pack and handed it to William Ann, then removed her hammer. It wasn't some war weapon like her grandfather had spoken of, just a simple tool for pounding nails or other things. Silence stooped over the first man, seeing his sleeping face sent a shiver through her. A primal piece of her waited, tense for those eyes to snap open. Jinx, Ash, but I'm moving more towards Lux mid. Okay, cool.
Totally understand what you guys are saying.
Jinx and Ash are attack carries, so they focus on physical attacks and doing high amounts of damage, and Lux is magic in the middle. Also, look, I can handle being told to drink bleach, but I can't handle spooky games. Okay.
We are going to play
so League of Legends, at least when I used to play, had a reputation as being an extremely toxic community. I don't know if that's changed or not. I'm guessing from Taylor's comment it has not. Yeah. Anyway.
Online gaming. It's going to be that way.
Yeah. Part and parcel, I suppose. Silence stooped over the first man, seeing his sleeping face sent a shiver through her. A primal piece of her waited, tense for those eyes to snap open. She held up 3 fingers to William Ann, then lowered them one at a time. When the third finger went down, William Ann shoved the sack over the man's head. As he jerked, Silence pounded him hard on the side of the temple with the hammer. The skull cracked and the head sank in a little. The man thrashed once, then grew limp. Wait a second. As he jerked, Silence pounded him hard on the side of the temple with the hammer. So there would be blood.
Yes, I have. I just
haven't
played League of Legends. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. 2 conversations happening.
Yeah.
League of Legends. I played Lux for a while. Really liked the tentacle guy mid. Forgot his name. Thresh? It's been a long time since I played. I used to main Trundle as best I could. This was way back before he was an ice troll. Okay, so she can do violence so long as the blood is not seen.
Visible. Yeah, like we thought it was violence itself that kind of attracted them. Interesting. Let's see how this works out. Bold strategy.
Yeah. Silence looked up, tense, watching the other men as William Ann pulled the sack tight. The shades nearby paused, but this didn't draw their attention as much as the strangling had. So long as the sack's lining of tar kept the blood from leaking out, they should be safe. Silence hit the man's head twice more, then checked for a pulse. There was none. But there are liters of blood. Taking off that head is going to be very difficult, and gravity works downward, so you better tie that thing tight if you intend to leave it on all the way back.
You're probably going to have... Yeah, you're going to have to leave it on. You're absolutely going to have to. How many you got, though? Hopefully you've got enough.
Presumably enough. I would assume they came prepared.
They're prepared, yeah.
They carefully did the next man in the row. It was brutal work, like slaughtering animals. It helped to think of these men as rabid, as she told William Ann earlier. It did not help to think of what the men had done to Sabruki. That would make her angry, and she couldn't afford to be angry. She needed to be cold, quiet, and efficient.
That's pretty good strategy. I would be wanting to just go mad. I don't care. Let's go, boys. Let's thrash them.
William Ann is taking it like a champ, too.
Yeah.
The second man took a few more knocks to the head to kill, but he woke more slowly than his friend. Fenweed made men groggy. It was an excellent drug for her purposes. She just needed them sleepy, a little disoriented. This is going too easy, by the way. And yes, I do see the and cut off. And The next man sat up in his bedroll. "What?" he asked in a slurred voice. Silence leaped for him, grabbing him by the shoulders and slamming him to the ground. Nearby shades spun about as if at a loud noise. Silence pulled her garrote out as the man heaved at her, trying to push her aside, and William Ann gasped in shock. Oh no.
Oh no.
No, they're going to overcome this one. It's Chesterton that they're going to have to worry about.
Yeah, but still, like, this is it's still a problem. Like, is Chesterton going to be woken up by this guy? We're going to need the gunpowder at some point.
He's this is just a mini boss. Chesterton is the main boss.
Yeah.
Silence rolled around, wrapping the man's neck. She pulled tight, straining while the man thrashed, agitating the shades. She almost had him dead when the last man leaped from his bedroll. In his dazed alarm, he chose to dash away. Shadows! That last one was Chesterton himself. Oh, yep, there you go. Why would you save Chesterton for last?
Well, I guess you don't really have a choice. You just you kill as you go in the road.
Yeah.
You can't really go. You can't walk past walk past and risk waking those guys up. You have to kill as you go. I understand.
Sure, I get it. Spatially, it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
If he drew the shades, Silence left the third man gasping and threw caution aside, racing after Chesterton.
Oh no!
Hopefully, William Ann will be able to take care of that last one. Without cause. Silence left the third man gasping and threw caution aside, racing after Chesterton. If the shades withered him to dust, she'd have nothing. No corpse to turn in meant no bounty. So you turn into dust. You don't become a shade. Wait, although didn't they...
Yes, that's what I was saying. Doesn't that make you a
husband.
Shade? Yeah. Okay.
The shades around the campsite faded from view as Silence reached Chesterton, catching him at the perimeter of the camp by the horses. She desperately tackled him by the legs, throwing the groggy man to the ground. "You bitch!" he said in a slurred voice, kicking at her. "You're the innkeeper! You poisoned me, you bitch!"
That's so funny the way your mic has cut off the ch sound, so it's like it's what's it censored you.
Oh no. "You bitch!" he said in a slurred voice, kicking at her. "You're the innkeeper! You poisoned me, you bitch!" In the forest, the shades had gone completely black. Green eyes burst to light as they opened their ears.
Earth side.
In the forest, the shades had gone completely black. Green eyes burst to light as they opened their earth sight. The eyes trailed a misty light.
Ooh.
Earth sight. Interesting.
That's cool.
Silence battered aside Chesterton's hands as he struggled. "I'll pay you," he said, clawing at her. "I'll pay you." Silence slammed her hammer into his arm, causing him to scream. Then she brought it down on his face with a crunch. So surely that's going to bring blood. She ripped off her sweater as he groaned and thrashed, somehow wrapping it around his head and the hammer.
"William Ann!"
she screamed.
"I need a bag, girl. Give me..."
William Ann knelt beside her, pulling a sack over Chesterton's head as the blood soaked through the sweater. Silence reached the side with a frantic hand and grabbed a stone, then smashed it into the sack-covered head. Sweater muffled Chesterton's screams, but also muffled the rock she had to beat again and again. He finally fell still. Well, that was easier than my famous last words.
But I hope he's recognizable after that. Like, yeah, I got him. I don't know if this is him though. I mean, he looks a little bit liquid. Yeah, it just doesn't. He looks a little bit mushy.
He finally fell still. William Ann held the sack against his neck to keep the blood from flowing out, her breath coming in quick gasps.
Oh, God beyond. Oh, God.
Silence dared look up. Dozens of green eyes hung in the forest, glowing like little fires in the blackness. William Ann squeezed her eyes shut and whispered a prayer, tears leaking down her cheeks. Silence reached slowly to her side and took out her silver dagger. She remembered another night, another sea of glowing green eyes, her grandmother's last night.
Run, girl, run. What's this?
Earth might be a typo. Brandon now might have called it physical sight these days. Earth does not exist in the Cosmere. Interesting.
Mm.
Oh, no.
But Earth
We don't
itself,
exist
the
in
word,
the Cosmere.
yeah, but I mean, maybe Earth, as in the word Earth, being ground, could still be that. That's like, I don't know. But I mean, they need to fix that.
Her grandmother's last night.
Run, girl, run!
That night, running had been an option. They'd been close to safety. Even then, grandmother hadn't made it. She might have, but she hadn't. That night horrified Silence. What grandmother had done, what Silence had done. Well, tonight she had only one hope. Running would not save them. Safety was too far away. Slowly, blessedly, the eyes started to fade. Silence sat back and let the silver knife slip out of her fingers to the ground. William Ann opened her eyes.
That is such a different kind of tense, kind of scary. You have to fight your basest instinct to run when you're scared. That's how you stay safe. You have to face the fear, basically, and let it wash over you rather than run from it. Yeah. So it's very tense, and she has to sit there and breathe. Oh, so he uses dirt. Yeah, that's very American. Dirt, because dirt into like English speak, like English is literally dirty, like, you know, what would go under your fingernails. Yeah, it comes up with Roshar when most of the land parts of the planet is rock and has no dirt.
Slowly, blessedly, the eyes started to fade away. Silence sat back and let the silver knife slip out of her fingers to the ground. William Ann opened her eyes.
Oh God, beyond,
she said as the shades faded back into view.
A miracle. Not a miracle. Just luck. We killed him in time. Another second, and they'd have enraged.
William Ann wrapped her arms around herself. But they left one alive?
Which? Oh, the one they left behind. Maybe she dispatched, William Ann dispatched with that one. Let's see.
I hope so.
Well, it's not over, so probably not. He tries not to. Okay. Tries not to in the ground.
William Ann wrapped her arms around herself.
Oh, shadows. Oh, shadows. I thought we were dead. Oh, shadows.
Suddenly, Silence remembered something. The third man. She hadn't finished strangling him before.
You remembered the third man before she did.
Yeah. She hadn't finished strangling him before Chesterton ran. She stumbled to her feet, turning. He lay there, immobile.
Ah.
Yay.
I finished him off.
William Ann said.
Had to strangle him with my hands. My hands. Wow, that's a tough job.
Yeah.
Strangle with your hands, and also that means you are holding for a long time, and you are feeling that person die beneath your hands. Oof.
Silence glanced back at her.
You did well, girl. You probably saved our lives. If you hadn't been here, I'd have killed Chesterton without enraging.
Never have.
I'd never have. What is my problem with negatives tonight? Or this morning?
Be positive.
If you hadn't been here, I'd never have killed Chesterton without enraging the shades.
The girl still stared out into the woods, watching the placid shades.
What would it take for you to see a miracle instead of a coincidence? It would take a miracle, obviously.
Silence said, picking up her knife.
Instead of just a coincidence. Come on, let's put a second sack on these fellows. Yeah, okay, there you go. They're being thorough.
Yeah. Yes. And obviously this means that they are going to experience a true miracle by the end of this story, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting.
Yep. William Ann joined her, lethargic as she helped put sacks on the heads of the bandits. 2 sacks each, just in case. Blood was the most dangerous. Running drew shades, but slowly. Fire enraged them immediately, but it also blinded and confused them. Blood, though. Blood shed in anger, exposed to the open air. A single drop could make the shades slaughter you, and then everything else within their sight. Silence checked each man for a heartbeat, just in case, and found none. They saddled the horses and heaved the corpses, including the lookout, into the saddles and tied them in place. They took the bedrolls and other equipment too. Hopefully the men would have some silver on them. Bounty laws let Silence keep what she found, unless there was specific mention of something stolen. In this case, the forts just wanted Chesterton dead. Pretty much everyone did. Silence pulled a rope tight, then paused.
Mother!
William Ann said, noticing the same thing. Leaves rustling out in the forests. They'd uncovered their jar of green glow paste to join that of the bandits, so the small campsite was well illuminated as a gang of 8 men and women on horseback rode in through the forests.
Jeez, I was just thinking, look, we thought Chesterton was the main boss, but the story, yeah. So, oh god.
So these people are now going to try and take Chesterton from her, yeah?
Yeah. That's the problem with bounties, man.
Wait for someone else to do the hard work, then come in and snipe them. Uncool.
No
They
honor.
were from the forts. What?
No honor.
No honor. They were from the forts. The nice clothing, the way they kept looking into the forests at the shades. Fort folk for certain. Silence stepped forward, wishing she had her hammer to look at least a little threatening. That was still tied in the sack around Chesterton's head. It would have blood on it, so she couldn't get it out until that dried, or she was in someplace very, very safe. Now look at this, said the man at the front of the newcomers. I couldn't believe what Tobias told me when he came back from scouting, but it appears to be true. All 5 men in Chesterton's gang killed by a couple of forest homesteaders.
Who are you?
Silence asked. Red Young, the man said with a tip of the hat. I've been tracking this lot for the last 4 months. I can't thank you enough for taking care of them for me. He waved to a few of his people who dismounted.
Mother!
William Ann hissed. Silence studied Red's eyes. He was armed with a cudgel, and one of the women behind him had one of those new crossbows with blood. He was armed with a cudgel, and one of the women behind him had one of those new crossbows with the blunt tips. They cranked fast and hit hard, but didn't draw blood. Nope, that's you.
Step away from the horses, child.
Silence said.
But step away.
Silence dropped the rope of the horse she was leading. 3 Fort City people gathered up the ropes, one of the men leering at William Ann. What are the odds that... What was his name? Theriopolis? Something like that?
Oh, yeah, he's got someone. Yeah.
Yeah. You're a smart one, Red said, leaning down and studying Silence. One of his women walked past, towing Chesterton's horse with the man's corpse slumped over the saddle. Silence stepped up, resting a hand on Chesterton's saddle. The woman towing it paused, then looked at her boss. Silence slipped her knife from its sheath.
You'll give us something.
Silence said to Red, knife hand hidden.
After what we did. 1 quarter, and I don't say a word.
Sure, he said, tipping his hat to her. He had a fake kind of grin, like one in a painting. 1 quarter it is. Silence nodded. She slipped the knife against one of the thin ropes that held Chesterton in the saddle. That gave her a good cut on it as the woman pulled the horse away. Silence stepped back, resting her hand on William Ann's shoulder while covertly moving the knife back into its sheath. Red tipped his hat to her again. In moments, the bounty hunters had retreated back through the trees toward the roadway.
1 quarter?
William Ann hissed.
You think he'll pay it?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it. That she just wanted to cut that rope. That's all.
Yeah.
She's giving herself time.
She's got a plan, though.
Mm-hmm. Hardly.
Silence said, picking up her pack.
We're lucky he didn't just kill us. Come on. They are. That's a miracle. But hey, whatever.
Yeah. She moved out into the forests. William Ann walked with her, both moving with the careful steps the forests demanded.
It might be time for you to return to the way stop, William Ann. And what are you going to do? Get our bounty back.
She was a Force Scout, damn it. No prim fort man was going to steal from her.
You mean to cut them off at the white span, I assume. But what will you do? We can't fight so many, Mother.
She's already said we. She's like,
Good catch.
I'll find a way.
That corpse meant freedom, life for her daughters. She would not let it slip away like smoke between the fingers. They entered the darkness, passing shades that had, just a short time before, been almost ready to wither them. Now the shades drifted away, completely indifferent toward their flesh.
That's an interesting thing. And we have now confirmation. She sees the other little girl as her daughter. Because I was like, daughters? It's like, oh yeah, she does. Have to.
Indeed.
Think, Silence. Something is very wrong here.
How had those men found the camp? The light? They overheard her and William Ann talking? They claimed to have been chasing Chesterton for months. Shouldn't she have caught wind of them before now? These men and women looked too crisp to have been out in the forest for months, trailing killers. It led to a conclusion she did not want to admit. One man had known she was hunting a bounty today, and had seen how she was planning to track that bounty. One man had cause to see that bounty stolen from her.
Mm-hmm. Theopolis. Theopolis. I hope I'm wrong.
She thought.
Because if you're behind this...
Silence and William Ann trudged through the guts of the forest, place where the gluttonous canopy above drank in all of the light, leaving the ground below barren. Shades patrolled these wooden halls like blind sentries. Red and his bounty hunters were of the forts. They would keep to the roadways, and that was her advantage. The forests were no friend to a homesteader, no more than a familiar chasm was any less dangerous a drop. But Silence was a sailor on this abyss. She could ride its winds better than any fort dweller. Perhaps it was time to make a storm. What homesteaders called the White Span was a section of roadway lined by mushroom fields. Oh, the art!
Mushroom. Yeah.
It took about an hour through the forests to reach the span, and Silence was feeling the price of a night without sleep by the time she arrived. She ignored the fatigue, tromping through the field of mushrooms, holding her jar of green light, and giving an ill cast to trees and furrows in the land. The roadway bent around the forests, then came back this way. The men were heading toward Lastport, or any of the other nearby forts. They would come this direction.
You continue on.
Silence said to William Ann.
It's only another hour's hike back to the way stop. Check on things there. I'm not leaving you, Mother. You promised to obey. Would you break your word? And you promised to let me help you. Would you break yours? I don't need you for this.
Love that confidence.
Mm-hmm. And it will be dangerous. What are you going to do?
Look, she's got that confidence because also she has just helped her mom out. She's kind of a badass.
No, I meant Silence's confidence.
Well, Silence, I don't know. Silence, maybe. I guess she's like, I've gotten enough from her. I don't know if this is warranted. Like, you need the confidence. Yes, go with that. But I'm like, you did need your daughter's help, and there are 8 of them. But
Silence stopped beside the roadway, then knelt, fishing in her pack. She came out with a small keg of gunpowder. William Ann went as white as the mushrooms.
Mother!
Silence untied her grandmother's fire starter. She didn't know for certain if it still worked. She'd never dared compress the 2 metal arms, which looked like tongs. Squeezing them together would grind the ends against one another, making sparks, and a spring at the joint would make them come back apart. Silence looked up at her daughter, then held the fire starter up beside her head. William Ann stepped back, then glanced to the sides toward nearby shades.
Are things really that bad? For us, I mean.
Silence nodded.
All right then.
Fool girl. Well, Silence wouldn't send her away. The truth was she probably would need help. She intended to get that corpse. Bodies were heavy, and there wasn't any way she'd be able to cut off just the head, not out in the forests with shades about. She dug into her pack, pulling out her medical supplies. They were tied between two small boards, intended to be used as splints. It was not difficult to tie the two boards to either side of the fire starter. With her hand trowel, she dug a small hole in the roadway's soft earth, about the size of the powder keg. She then opened the plug to the keg and set it into the hole. She soaked her handkerchief in the lamp oil, stuck one end in the keg, then positioned the fire starter boards on the road with the end of the kerchief next to the spark-making heads. After covering the contraption with some leaves, she had a rudimentary trap. If someone stepped on the top board, that would press it down and grind out sparks to light the kerchief. Hopefully. Did she just make a landmine?
Yeah. Jeez. She means business.
Excellent. She couldn't afford to light the fire herself. The shades would come first for the one who made the fire.
What happens if they don't step on it? Then we move it to another place on the road and try again. That could shed blood, you realize.
Silence didn't reply. The trap was triggered by a footfall. The shades wouldn't see Silence as the one causing it. They'd come first for the one who triggered the trap, but if blood was drawn, they would enrage. Soon after, it wouldn't matter who had caused it. All would be in danger.
We have hours of darkness left. Cover your glow paste. So there's no answer for that. There's just, we'll deal with it.
Indeed. I must AFK for a brief moment. Kite, would you mind entertaining the masses?
Okay. I will try. What shall I entertain them with? We are on page 462, and we've got quite a way to go. 480. Okay, so we've got about 20 pages to go. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around with us and reading along with us, and dealing with my performance. The thing is, it's just more authentic, okay, with the female voices. Dorcas does try to coach me in acting and things like that, but I'm a very slow learner, so we have to deal with it, with things. As for the spookiness of this, look, it is quite scary. We're in hell and all of that, basically. Oh, sorry, I've now offended Silence. But that this has worked as a Halloween story. But the previous one as well was quite scary. So it could have worked for Halloween as well.
I have returned.
Now it's my turn. I need to.
All right.
I require sustenance.
All right. Yes, I do little bits to try and coax performances out of Kite. Little did she ever realize that she would be doing silly voices on the internet when she started her YouTube channel, I am sure. But yeah, she has a great channel where she does all kinds of topics. I hope everyone had a really wonderful Halloween. Did any of you dress up and do anything fun for it? That is a question that I will currently ask. I got a brand new... That's not true. I got a new computer now, and I'm recording on my new mic, so I'm very excited for hopefully some improvements to the sound quality in future streams and future videos. No more of that robotic voice every so often happening with certain words. This is now my stream of consciousness. I don't know what to say next. I suppose my schedule is going to be calming down a little bit, so I do intend to get to the Three Kingdoms summarized videos at some point. as well. And I'm tentatively planning on having that air on perhaps a Friday or a Thursday. We'll see how that one goes. Feels like I was gone and back much quicker than our wonderful Kitte.
Here we are.
All right. Thus ends our intermission. Thank you. This stream brought to you by...
We'll miss the robotic voice. Don't worry, you can get robotic voice back over on my channel. It's all janky over there.
We will miss the robotic voice. Thank you. Oh, but I haven't like a Lewitt microphone now. It's I will miss the Shure. May it rest in peace. That thing served me well since I want to say 2010. Really put it through its paces. Did many a thing on it. Okay, where was I? William Ann nodded hastily, putting the cover on her jar. Silence inspected her trap again, then took William Ann by the shoulder and pulled her to the side of the roadway. The underbrush was thicker there, as the road tended to wind through breaks in the canopy. People sought out places in the forests where they could see the sky. The bounty hunters came along eventually, silent, illuminated by a jar of glow paste each. Fort folk didn't talk at night. They passed the trap, which Silence had placed on the narrowest section of roadway. She held her breath, watching the horses pass, step after step, missing the lump that marked the board. William Ann covered her ears, hunkering down. Hoof hit the trap. Nothing happened. Silence released an annoyed breath. What would she do if the fire starter was broken? Could she find another way to... The explosion struck her, the wave of force shaking her body. Oh, that was... What's the term for what that was? Bait and switch?
What? Like,
not quite.
You thought it was a misdirect. Yeah, it was kind of a bait and switch. We were like, oh, okay, it's not going to happen. And then it's like, oh, by the way, boom.
The explosion struck her, the wave of force shaking her body. Shades vanished in a blink, green eyes snapping open, horses reared and whinnied, men and women yelling. Silence shook off her stupefaction, grabbing William Ann by the shoulder and pulling her out of hiding. Her trap had worked better than she'd assumed. The burning rag had allowed the horse who had triggered the trap to take a few steps before the blast hit. No blood, just a lot of surprised horses and confused people. The little keg of gunpowder hadn't done as much damage as she'd anticipated. The stories of what gunpowder could do were often as fanciful as stories of the homeland, but the sound had been incredible. Silence's ears rang as she fought through the confused fort folk, finding what she'd hoped to see. Chesterton's corpse lay on the ground, dumped from saddleback by a bucking horse and a frayed rope. She grabbed the corpse under the arms, and William Ann took the legs. They moved sideways into the forest. So, first off, that was easy. But second off, where are the shades now?
Oh, they're coming. They're incoming.
Idiots! Red bellowed from amid the confusion. Stop her! He cut off as shades swarmed the roadway, descending upon the men. Red had managed... Oh my god, I'm dying. Red had managed to keep his horse under control. But now he had to dance it back from the shades. Okay, yeah, I need a drink.
Yeah, there they are. And they're enraged. Oh, he needs to... I was like, where'd he gone?
Okay. Idiots! Red bellowed from amid the confusion. Stop her! He cut off as shades swarmed the roadway, descending upon the men. Red had managed to keep his horse under control, but now he had to dance it back from the shades. Enraged, they had turned black, though the blast of light and fire had obviously left them dazed. They fluttered about like moths at a flame, green eyes, a small blessing, if those turned red. So I like how their eyes change color depending on the frenzy.
Yeah, that's like in Monster Hunter. They change status. So once the status has gone to red, you're enraged. That's great. Again, great video game basis.
Video game, yeah.
Yeah.
One bounty hunter standing on the road and spinning about was struck. His back arched, black-veined tendrils crisscrossing his skin. He dropped to his knees, screaming as the flesh of his face shrank around his skull. Silence turned away. Yeah. William Ann watched the fallen man with a horrified expression.
Slowly, child.
Silence said in what she hoped was a comforting voice. She hardly felt comforting.
Carefully. We can move away from them. William Ann, look at me.
The girl turned to look at her.
Hold my eyes. Move. That's right. Remember, the shades will go to the source of the fire first. They are confused, stunned. They can't smell fire like they do blood, and they'll look from it to the nearest rapid motion. Slowly, easily. Let the scrambling fort folk distract them. Woo! I love this. That's it. Yes. Keep your head. Keep your head. That's what this whole forest thing is about. It's like you're letting your fear get the best of you will end in your demise. You have to just hold on to it. So I would die so easily.
Oh yeah, I'd have died long, long ago. I'd have accidentally stepped on a stick or something. Anyway, the two of them eased into the forests with excruciating deliberateness. In the face of so much chaos, so much danger, their pace felt like a crawl. Red organized a resistance. Fire-crazed shades could be fought, destroyed with silver. More and more would come, but if the bounty hunters were clever and lucky, they'd be able to destroy those nearby and then move slowly away from the source of the fire. They could hide, survive, maybe. Unless one of them accidentally drew blood. Silence and William Ann stepped through a field of mushrooms that glowed like the skulls of rats and broke silently beneath their feet. Luck was not completely with them, for as the shades shook off their disorientation from the explosion, a pair of them on the outskirts turned and struck out toward the fleeing women. William Ann gasped.
Sorry, I'm just upset.
Yeah, and Red is still out there. Silence deliberately set down Chesterton's shoulders, then took out her knife.
Keep going,
she whispered.
Pull him away. Slowly, girl. Slowly. I won't leave you. I will catch up.
Silence said.
You aren't ready for this.
She didn't look to see if William Ann obeyed for the shades. She didn't look to see if William Ann obeyed for the shades. Figures of jet black streaking across the white-knobbed ground were upon her. Strength was meaningless against shades. They had no real substance. Only two things mattered, your speed and not letting yourself be frightened. Shades were dangerous, but so long as you had silver, you could fight. Many a man died because he ran, drawing even more shades rather than standing his ground. Silence swung at the shades as they reached her.
You want my daughter hellbound?
She thought with a snarl.
You should have tried for the fort. You should have tried for the fort folk instead.
She swept her knife through the first shade as grandmother had taught.
Never creep back and cower before shades. You're for scout blood. You claim the forests. You are the creature as much as any other, as am I.
Her knife passed through the shade with a slight tugging feeling, creating a shower of bright white sparks that sprayed out of the shade. The shade pulled back its black tendrils, writhing about one another. And that right there is the picture, the painting.
Yeah, that's the picture. So that's what she's done. That's the slicing through time, space, whatever was slicing through the fade. And you can see the eyes. Sorry, I said fade. That's a different creature. Yeah, it works. Actually, Wheel of Time people will know.
Yeah. The metal reversed the withering, and the skin turned pink against the blackness, melting away in sparks of white. Wait. No. That's not where I left off.
Her knife passed through the shade with a slight tugging. Let's just do it again.
Where am I?
Sun had spun on the other, the pitch sky.
Silence spun on the other, the pitch sky letting her see only the thing's eyes, a horrid green as it reached for her. She lunged. Its spectral hands were upon her, the icy cold of its fingers gripping her arm below the elbow. She could feel it. Shade fingers had substance. They could grab you, hold you back. Only silver warded them away. Only with silver could you fight. She rammed her arm in farther. Sparks shot out its back, spraying like a bucket of wash water. Silence gasped at the horrid icy pain. Her knife slipped from fingers she could no longer feel. She lurched forward, falling to her knees as the second shade fell backward, then began spinning about in a mad spiral. The first one flopped on the ground like a dying fish trying to rise, its top half falling over. The cold of her arm was so bitter. She stared at the wounded arm, watching the flesh of her hand wither upon itself, pulling in toward the bone. She heard weeping.
Ooh, okay, wait. So, listen, lots of Wheel of Time stuff here, but also I'm just thinking of the look. We have the Mist Wraith thing in mind, not Mist Wraith. The Mist Spirit thing in mind, and it touched Vin, and her arm went cold. So
this is true, but the Mist Spirit thing goes for her ear. And I don't think there's any mention here of going for an ear, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's deliberate connection. It's just, I like making them. I don't think it's like they're connected in the world. It's just things that he... Oh, the deepness is related. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so I'm hesitant to put words to it, but assuming the deepness is the same thing as the desolation, is it possible that this is a world similar to Mistborn, only one in which the deepness has been markedly more successful than the Mistborn world?
I mean,
or Roshar?
We have the whole idea of, silver. Well, we got metal, but I mean, silver's, it's a normal tradition to have silver equals fighting bad things. Either way, I just like the way you could form these kind of connections if you wanted to. If you wanted to. Not that you have to.
Yeah. The deepness and the desolations are not the same thing. Related, you could say, but not the same. Okay. Good to know. Very good to know.
Same chat.
She heard weeping.
You stand there, Silence.
Grandmother's voice. Memories of the first time she'd kill a shade. Wait, can you do an old lady voice?
You stand... I don't know. You stand there, Silence.
Yes, that's it.
You stand there, Silence.
Grandmother's voice. Memories of the first time she'd killed a shade.
You do as I say. No tears. 4 Scouts don't cry. 4 Scouts don't cry.
She had learned to hate her that day. 10 years old, with her little knife, shivering and weeping in the night as her grandmother had enclosed her, and 10 years old with her little knife, shivering and weeping in the night as her grandmother had enclosed her and a drifting shade in a ring of silver dust. Oh that's
wow.
brutal.
Yeah.
Kitta, are you sure you're doing a voice?
That's exactly my yeah. Listen, and every female is South African. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. Kitta, I was telling them a little bit about how I suspect you never imagined you would be streaming yourself doing silly voices like this. Did you expect this to come when you did that very first diagram stream of yours?
No, but I do know that I would be doing embarrassing things on the internet because that's what I was doing when I was gaming.
That's true.
And I make stupid noises and voices of my own accord, spontaneously in other things, but not on purpose. None of this on purpose stuff. That requires skill. No, I did not. But either way, it's fun.
To be fair, your accent fits well for Vin, at least in my opinion.
You know what? I agree. It's not that
I love it.
That I think I sound like Vin. It's just that it just fits. It just feels like it fits. But I suppose
I
that is
agree.
because I'm biased, because you want to be the main character in the story. So.
Well, I mean, you're tiny and
Mhm.
tomboyish, so
there.
Min.
And I also like dresses in spite of myself, so it all works.
I'm very excited for us to discuss the next chapter.
Mhm.
She had learned to hate her that day, 10 years old, with her little knife shivering and weeping in the night as her grandmother had enclosed her in a drifting shade in a ring of silver dust. Grandmother had run and the perimeter and Did France colonize South Africa?
No.
True. Yeah. I imagine everyone in Mistborn world has a French accent. I'm pretty sure I heard someone say somewhere that Kelsier is actually supposed to be Kelsier. So I just assume everyone's French except for Dachshund.
Yeah, just everyone. Just Dachshund was just like, none of that. I'm not having it.
Grandmother had run around the perimeter, enraging it with motion, Grandmother had run around the perimeter, enraging it with motion, while Silence was trapped in there with death.
The only way to learn is to do, Silence. And you'll learn one way or another. That's horrible. Good Lord. I guess, but I mean, that's kind of like Lions. That's how you hunt. You have to learn. Face it. You face the fears. But she's 10. Jeez.
They absolutely do, except for Elend and his family, because they're more German-based. Does it matter? No, but I must do something with this information.
Yes, you are. You're a wealth of information.
I'm not so good at. No, I can't do German. Ich weiß ein bisschen, aber meine Deutsch ist nicht so gut. So I would not be able to do a German accent. And Sazed and the Keepers, the Terracemen, would have a different accent as well, yeah?
Yeah. Hey, fun fact, although that the Sazed's accent is canon now, the accent you gave him for me, so...
Yes. The vaguely European... Yeah. Go on.
Fun fact, there are something in the new Monster Hunter game. There is a faction of people, whatever, called the Keepers. So
nice.
And there's big storms and things like that, and so I'm just like enjoying connecting everything to the stories we're reading.
Excellent. While Silence was trapped in there with death.
The only way to learn is to do, Silence, and you'll learn one way or another. Mother!
William Ann said. Silence blinked, coming out of the memory as her daughter dumped silver dust on the exposed arm. The withering stopped as William Ann, choking against her thick tears, dumped the entire pouch of emergency silver over the hand. The metal reversed the withering, and the skin turned pink again, the blackness melting away in sparks of white.
Whew!
Too much.
That's a lot.
Yeah, she put all of it there, but listen, I understand. It's just like, just probably make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's crying. Gosh.
Yeah.
Too much.
Silence thought. William Ann had used all of the silver dust in her haste, far more than one wound needed. It was difficult to summon any anger for feeling flooded back into her hand, and the icy cold... It was difficult to summon any anger for feeling flooded back into her hand, and the icy cold retreated.
Mother?
William Ann asked.
I left you, as you said, but he was so heavy. I didn't get far. I came back for you. I'm sorry. I came back for you. Thank you.
Silence said, well. Breathing in.
You did well.
She reached up and took her daughter by the shoulder, then used the once withered hand to search in the grass for grandmother's knife. When she brought it up, the blade was blackened in several places, but still good. Back on the road, the fort folk had made a circle and were holding off the shades with silver-tipped spears. The horses had all fled or been consumed. Silence fished on the ground, coming up with a small handful of silver dust. The rest had been expended in the healing. Too much.
No use worrying about that now.
She thought, stuffing the handful of dust in her pocket.
Come.
She said, hauling herself to her feet.
I'm sorry I never taught you to fight them. Yes, you did.
William Ann said, wiping her tears.
You've told me all about it. Okay, so that's the difference. Earlier on we had in the story, her grandmother would be disgusted at the way that she has raised William Ann, because William Ann has had a normal childhood rather than being trapped in a circle with death at the age of 10. Okay? So, but she's still saying, no, you told me how to fight them and whatever. So you've taught me that instead of, throwing. I would say she's of age now. She should be practicing that sort of thing. But I suppose you don't no, you do. You clearly have made it to that age without the training. I was going to say, you survive past 10 because you've been trained.
I mean, at least do a few drills.
Yeah.
Get a dummy or something.
Mm-hmm.
Told, never shown.
Shadows, grandmother. Oh, Shadows, grandmother. I know I disappoint you, but I won't do it to her. I can't, but I'm a good mother. I will protect them.
The two left the mushrooms, taking up their grisly prize again and tromping through the forests. Past more darkened shades floating toward the fight. All of those sparks would draw them. The fort folk were dead. Too much attention, too much struggle. Too much attention, too much struggle. They'd have 1,000 shades upon them before the hour was out. Silence and William Ann moved slowly. This is too easy. I don't believe that Red is dead. And we haven't seen this fox that's on the cover art.
Well, she's supposed to be the white fox herself.
Yeah, but
there
presumably
is the legend.
Dorcas' face there is her.
Exactly. So there is a real the basis for the legend.
Yeah. They passed. The fort folk were dead. Too much attention, too much struggle. They'd have 1,000 shades upon them before the hour was out. Silence and William Ann moved slowly. Though the cold had mostly retreated from Silence's hand, there was a lingering something. A deep shiver. A limb touched by the shades wouldn't feel right for months. So that's, we commented about Aragorn earlier. That's Frodo getting stabbed by the Nazgul, right?
Yeah. Will never fully heal. But at least for months.
That was far better than what could have happened. Without William Ann's quick thinking, Silence could have become a cripple. Once the withering settled in, that took a little time. Though it varied, it was irreversible. Something rustled in the woods. Silence froze, causing William Ann to stop and glance about.
Mother?
William Ann whispered. Silence frowned. The night was so black and they'd been forced to leave their lights.
Something's out there,
she thought, trying to pierce the darkness.
What are you?
God beyond protect them if the fighting had drawn one of the deepest ones.
Oh gosh. What is the deepest ones? What is that, like a super phase? A super shade?
Super shade. The sound did not repeat. Reluctantly, Silence continued on. They walked for a good hour, and in the darkness, Silence hadn't realized they'd neared the roadway again until they stepped onto it. Silence heaved out a breath, setting down their burden and rolling her tired arms in their joints. Some light from the star belt filtered down upon them, illuminating something like a large jawbone to their left. The old bridge. They were almost home. The shades here weren't even agitated. They moved with their lazy, almost butterfly gaits. Her arms felt so sore. The body felt as if it were getting heavier every moment. People often didn't realize how heavy a corpse was. Silence sat down. They'd rest for a time before continuing on.
William Ann, do you have any water left in your canteen?
William Ann whimpered. Oh no. Why? Are you just out of breath?
Yeah,
Silence started.
I hope so.
I'm so nervous right now. They should not be resting. Something bad's about to happen.
Yeah, you're not through it. We have so much more to go.
Silence started, then scrambled to her feet. Her daughter stood beside the bridge, and something dark stood behind her. A green glow suddenly illuminated the night as the figure took out a small vial of glow paste. By that sickly light, Silence could see that the figure was red.
Yee, there you go.
Yeah, I knew
You called it.
he has too much antagonist energy to just die off screen.
Mm-hmm.
He held a dagger to William Ann's neck. The fort man had not fared well in the fighting. One eye was now a milky white, half his face blackened, his lips pulled back from his teeth. A shade had gotten him across the face. He was lucky to be alive. I figured you'd come back this way, he said, the words slurred by his shriveled lips. Spittle dripped from his chin. Silver! Give me your silver! His knife. It was common steel. No! He roared, pulling the knife closer to William Ann's neck. If you so much as nicked her, the shades would be upon them in the heartbeats. The shades would be upon them in heartbeats.
I only have the knife.
Silence lied, taking it out. Silence lied, taking it out and tossing it to the ground before him.
It's too late for your face, Red. That withering has set in.
I don't care, he hissed. Now the body! Step away from it, woman! Away! Silence stepped to the side. Could she get to him before he killed William Ann? He'd have to grab that knife. She sprang just right. You killed my crew! They're dead, all of them! God, if I hadn't rolled into the hollow, I'd had to listen to them being slaughtered.
I'm wondering at some point whether we should try without noise cancelling or some sort of. Do you have a? Sorry, because you're doing awesome work and it kind of it peaks off. Do you have a
I'll
not a
lower
noise
the
gate?
gain a bit.
No, it's not some.
Back off.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what's the other a compressor? I think is the other thing that you have on when just to make sure you don't peak it. It cuts out, right?
Yeah, I think lowering the gain should. I'll try once lowering the gain, and if that's still problematic, let me know.
I just know that it's not bothering me, but I know it'll bother you.
Yeah, it will bother me. Thank you. Thanks for putting up with. Anyway, I don't care. Now the body, step away from it, woman, away. Silence stepped to the side. Could she get to him before he killed William Ann? You'd have to grab that knife. If she sprang just right. You killed my crew. They're dead, all of them. God, if I hadn't rolled into the hollow, I'd had to listen to it. Listen to them being slaughtered. How was that? Better?
Yeah, a bit better. Most of it, yeah. I just know you.
Thanks.
Remember, this is the beauty of live performance.
Yeah.
You were the only smart one. You couldn't have saved them, Red.
Bitch, you killed them!
They killed themselves. I'm whispering, sorry. They killed themselves. You come to my forest, take what is mine. It was your crew or my children, Red.
Well, if you want your child to live through this, you'll stay very still. Girl, pick up that knife. Whimpering, William Ann knelt. Red mimicked her, staying just behind her, watching Silence holding the knife steady. William Ann picked up the knife in trembling hands. Red pulled the silver knife from William Ann, then held it in one hand, the common knife at her neck in the other. Now the girl is going to carry the corpse, and you're going to wait right there. I don't want you coming near.
Of course.
Silence said, already planning. She couldn't afford to strike right now. He was too careful. She would follow through the forests along the road and wait for a moment of weakness. Then she'd strike. Red spat to the side. Then a padded crossbow bolt shot from the night and took him in the shoulder, jolting him. His blade slid across William Ann. Oh dear.
Sorry, I can't hold my reaction in there.
Then a padded crossbow bolt shot from the knight and took him in the shoulder, jolting him. His blade slid across William Ann's neck, and a dribble of blood ran down it. The girl's eyes widened in horror, though it was little more than a nick. The danger to her throat wasn't important. The blood was. Cover it. Can you cover it quickly? Can you if it's not a bad nick?
But like it immediately gets them shades going. Oh god.
Yeah. I'm not worried about the crossbow bolt because they mentioned earlier that they could be shot without drawing blood, but red eyes in the night, blood in the air. To be fair, I think we all knew at some point this was going to happen during this story. You don't just drop all of this danger and not show it to us.
Yeah, exactly. You've given us the mechanics of how these beasties work. You're going to bring it. Oh, wake up, everybody. Okay.
Oh, hell! Red screamed, oh, hell! Red eyes swarmed around him. There was no hesitation here, no confusion. They went straight for the one who had drawn blood. Silence reached for William Ann as the shades descended. Red grabbed the girl and shoved her through a shade, trying to stop it. He spun and dashed the other direction. I agree. It is an appropriate reaction. Silence reached for William Ann as the shades descended. Red grabbed the girl and shoved her through a shade, trying to stop it. He spun and dashed the other direction. William Ann passed through the shade, her face withering, skin pulling in at the chin and around the eyes. She stumbled through the shade and into Silence's arms. Oh no, that's even worse than the blood.
Yeah. You're gonna wither and oh my gosh.
I liked her so much too. Silence felt an immediate, overwhelming panic.
No, child, no, no, no!
William Ann worked her mouth, making a choking sound, her lips pulling back toward her teeth, her eyes open wide as her skin tightened and her eyelids shriveled.
Silver, I need Silver. I can save her.
Silence snapped her head up, clutching William Ann. Red ran down the roadway, slashing the silver dagger all about, spraying light and sparks. Shades surrounded him, hundreds like ravens flocking to a roost. Not that way. The shades would finish with him soon and would look for flesh, any flesh. William Ann still had blood on her neck. They'd come for her next. Even without that, the girl was withering fast. The dagger wouldn't be enough to save William Ann. Silence needed dust, silver dust, to force down her daughter's throat. Silence fumbled in her pocket, coming out with a small bit of silver dust there. Too little. She knew that would be too little. Grandmother's training calmed her mind, and everything became immediately clear. The way stop was close. She had more silver there.
Mother.
Silence heaved William Ann into her arms. Too light, the flesh drying. Then she turned and ran with everything she had across the bridge. Her arms stung, weakened from having hauled the corpse so far. The corpse. She couldn't lose it. No, she couldn't think on that. The shades would have it. As warm enough flesh soon after Red was gone. There would be no bounty. She had to focus on William Ann. Good to see her priorities are in order.
Yeah, sorry. You can maybe spare a thought. Oh no, that sucks. But yeah, that's as far as you can go with that. No consideration beyond.
Silence's tear fell cold on her face as she ran, wind blowing her. Daughter trembled and shook in her arms, spasming as she died. She'd become a shade as if she died like this. Wait. Nope.
She'd become a shade.
She'd become a shade if she died like this.
I won't lose you.
Silence said into the night.
Please, I won't lose you.
Behind her, Red screamed a long, wailing screech of agony that cut off at the end as the shades feasted. Near her, other shades stopped, eyes deepening to red. Blood in the air, eyes of crimson.
And she's running, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
I hate you.
Silence whispered into the air as she ran. Each step was agony. She was growing old.
I hate you. What you did to me. What you did to us.
She didn't know if she was speaking to grandmother or the god beyond. So often they were the same in her mind. Had she ever realized that before? Branches lashed at her as she pushed forward. Was that light ahead? The way stop? Hundreds upon hundreds of red eyes opened in front of her. She stumbled to the ground, spent. William Ann like a heavy bundle of branches in her arms. The girl trembled, her eyes rolled back in her head. Silence held out the... Go on.
Just a note. Who... The crossbow bolt, we still don't know who that was.
My guess is it was, what's her name? The 8-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Or Dagon or Strider, Aragorn.
Yeah.
I mean, who else would it be? It's not going to be Theopolis.
No.
At least I highly doubt it's going to be Theopolis. Hundreds upon hundreds of red eyes opened in front of her. She stumbled to the ground, spent, William Ann like a heavy bundle of branches in her arms. The girl trembled, her eyes rolled back in her head. Silence held out the small bit of silver dust she'd recovered earlier. She longed to pour it on William Ann, save her a little pain, but she knew with clarity that was a waste. She looked down, crying, then took the dust and made a small circle around the two of them. What else could she do? William Ann shook with a seizure as she rasped, drawing in breaths and clawing at Silence's arms. Shades came by the dozens, huddling around the two of them, smelling the blood, the flesh. Silence pulled her daughter close. She should have gone for the knife after all. It wouldn't heal William Ann, but she could have at least fought with it. Without that, without anything, she failed. Grandmother had been right all along.
Hush now, my dear one.
Silence whispered, squeezing her eyes shut.
Be not afraid.
Shades came at her frail barrier, throwing up sparks, making Silence open her eyes. They backed away, then others came, beating against the silver, their red eyes illuminating writhing black forms.
Night comes upon us.
Silence whispered, choking at the words.
But sunlight will break.
William Ann arched her back, then fell still.
Sleep now, my dear one. Let your tears fade. Darkness surrounds us, but someday we'll wake.
So tired.
I shouldn't have let her come.
If she hadn't, Chesterton would have gotten away from her, and she'd have probably fallen to the shades then. William Ann and Sabruki would have become slaves to Theopolis, or worse. No choices, no way out.
Why did you send us here?
She screamed, looking up past hundreds of glowing red eyes.
What is the point?
There was no answer. There was never an answer. Yes, that was light ahead. She could see it through the low tree branches in front of her. She was only a few yards from the way stop. She would die, like grandmother had, mere paces from her home. She blinked, cradling William Ann as the tiny silver barrier failed. That branch just in front of her, it had such a very odd shape. Long, thin, no leaves, not like a branch at all. Instead, like a crossbow bolt. It had lodged into the tree after being fired from the way stop earlier in the day. She remembered facing down that bolt earlier, staring at its reflective end. Silver.
Okay, so actually it really turns out that, you know what, it's good that we didn't go and get that bolt. And that's how close they are. Oh, that hurts.
Oh, man. And then seems to be a little break.
Mm-hmm. And we have and we start this break or whatever again with the full name. Silence Montaigne.
Silence Montaigne crashed through the back door of the way stop, hauling a desiccated body behind her. She stumbled into the kitchen, barely able to walk, and dropped the silver-tipped bolt from a withered hand. So she fought all of those guys off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yay! Her skin continued to pull tight, her body shriveling. She had not been able to avoid withering, not when fighting so many shades. The crossbow bolt had merely cleared a path, allowing her to push forward in a last frantic charge. She could barely see. Tears streamed from her clouded eyes. Even with the tears, her eyes felt as dry as if she had been standing in the wind for an hour while holding them wide open. Her lids refused to blink, and she couldn't move her lips. She had powder, didn't she? Thought. Mind. What?
Ooh.
She moved without thought. Jar on the windowsill. Ooh, ooh.
Because this is what happens to you as you start shriveling. You know, you're losing your mind. You're just becoming a wraith, basically.
She moved without thought. Jar on the windowsill. In case of broken circle. She unscrewed the lid with fingers like sticks, seeing them horrified, a distant part of her mind. Dying. I'm dying. She dunked the jar of silver powder in the water cistern and pulled it out, then stumbled to William Ann. She fell to her knees beside the girl, spilling much of the water. The rest she dumped on her daughter's face with a shaking arm. Please. Nope, that's you.
Please. Please.
Darkness.
We were sent here to be strong.
Grandmother said, standing on the cliff edge overlooking the waters. Her whited hair curled in the wind, writhing like the wisps of a shade. She turned back to silence, and her weathered face was covered in droplets of water from the crashing surf below.
The God beyond sent us. It's part of the plan. It's so easy for you to say that, isn't it? You can fit you can fit anything into that nebulous plan, even the destruction of the world itself. I won't hear blasphemy from you, child.
A voice like boots stepping in gravel. She walked towards silence. No, it's fine.
You can rail against the God beyond, but it will change nothing. William was a fool.
No, that's the grandma.
That's the grandma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, wait, that might be the grandpa. Wait, who's speaking?
She walked towards silence, and she's talking, you can rail against the God beyond, but it will change nothing. Okay, no, that's grandma. You can rail against the God beyond, but it will change nothing. William was a fool and an idiot. You are better off. We are 4 scouts. We survive. We will be the ones to defeat the evil someday. Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
That's a big calling.
That's a grand. What do you call it? Undertaking.
Yeah. They are the chosen people. She passed Silence by. Silence had never seen a smile from grandmother, not since her husband's death. Smiling was wasted energy, and love. Love was for the people back in homeland, the people who'd perished from the evil.
I'm with child.
Silence said. Grandmother stopped.
William?
Who else?
Grandmother continued on.
No condemnations?
Silence asked, folding her arms.
It's done.
Grandmother said.
We are 4 scouts. If this is how we must continue, so be it. I'm more worried about the waste up in meeting our payments to those damn forts. I have an idea for that.
Silence thought, considering the list of bounties she'd begun collecting.
Yeah. Something even you wouldn't dare. Something dangerous. Something unthinkable.
Grandmother reached the woods and looked at Silence, scowled, then pulled on her hat and stepped into the trees.
I will not have you interfering with my child.
Silence called after her.
I will raise my own as I will.
Grandmother vanished into the shadows.
Please. Please. I will. I won't lose you. I won't.
So is that like a vision of grandmother? I suppose, yeah.
I think it's a memory as she's tending to,
But like
the William Ann.
She's okay, yeah.
And William Ann's dad was named William.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so she never met her dad, William Ann. And I suspected as much when she was named after her dad and the dad's dead. I was like, yeah, probably that is why she's named William Ann. It's not that it's just okay. We do that. We name people after their fathers, whatever, we've named daughters after their fathers, I thought it was kind of clear that, yeah, the father had been lost early.
Yeah. Silence gasped, coming awake and clawing at the floorboards, staring upward. Alive! She was alive! Dobb the stableman knelt beside her, holding the jar of powdered silver. She coughed, lifting fingers, plump, the flesh restored to her neck. It was hale, though ragged from the flakes of silver that had been forced down her throat. Her skin was dusted with black bits of ruined silver.
William Ann!
She said, turning. The child lay on the floor beside the door. William Ann's left side, where she'd first touched the shade, was blackened. Her face wasn't too bad, but her hand was a withered skeleton. They'd have to cut that off. Her leg looked bad, too. Silence couldn't tell how bad without tending the wounds.
Oh, child.
Silence knelt beside her, but the girl breathed in and out. That was enough, all things considered. I tried, Dobb said, but you'd already done what could be done.
Thank you.
Silence said. She turned to the aged man with his high forehead and dull eyes. Did you get him? Dobb asked.
Who?
The bounty.
Yes, I did, but I had to leave him.
You'll find another, Dobb said in his monotone, climbing to his feet. The fox always does.
How long have you known?
I'm an idiot, ma'am, not a fool. He bowed his head to her, then walked away, slump-backed as always. Silence climbed to her feet, then groaned, picking up William Ann. She lifted her daughter to the rooms above and saw to her. The leg wasn't as bad as Silence had feared. A few of the toes would be lost, but the foot itself was hale enough. The entire left side of William Ann's body was blackened, as if burned. That would fade, with time, to gray. Everyone who saw her would know exactly what had happened. Many men would never touch her, fearing her taint. This might just doom her to a life alone. No.
And we want love for her.
Yeah, she's such a nice soul, it seems.
I know a little about such a life.
Silence thought, dipping a cloth into the water bin and washing William Ann's face. The youth would sleep through the day. She had come very close to death, to becoming a shade herself. Her body did not recover quickly from that. Of course, Silence had been close to that too. She, however, had been there before. Another of grandmother's preparations.
Jeez!
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah, we were like, oh, okay, it was really crap that she put her in basically a ring with death. It's like, oh, by the way, we're gonna go and let the shades touch you now to let you get close to that, and then I'll heal you. Jesus.
Oh, how she hated that woman. Silence owed who she was to how that training had toughened her. Could she be thankful for grandmother and hateful both at once?
Yep.
Silence finished. What?
Yep, she can.
Yes, she can.
Yeah, human emotions are very complex.
Yep. Silence finished washing William Ann, then dressed her in a soft nightgown and left her in her bunk. Sabruki still slept off the draughts Silence had given her, so she went downstairs to the kitchen to think difficult thoughts. She'd lost the bounty. The shades would have had it, that body. The skin would be dust, the skull blackened and ruined. She had no way to prove that she'd taken Chesterton. She settled against the kitchen table and laced her hands before her. She wanted to have it the whiskey instead to dull the horror of the night. She thought for hours. Could she pay Theopolis off some way? Borrow from someone else? Who? Maybe find another bounty. So few people came through the waystop these days. Theopolis had already given her warning with his writ. He wouldn't wait more than a day or two for payment before claiming the waystop as his own. Had she really gone through so much, still to lose? Sunlight fell on her face and a breeze from the broken window tickled her cheek, waking her from her slumber at the table. Silence blinked, stretching, limbs complaining. Then she sighed, moving to the kitchen counter. She'd left out all of the materials from the preparations last night, her clay bowls thick with glow paste that still shone faintly. The silver-tipped crossbow bolt lay by the back door where she'd dropped it. She'd need to clean up and get some breakfast ready for her few guests, then think of some way to... The back door opened and someone stepped in. to deal with Theophilus. She exhaled softly, looking at him in his clean clothing and condescending smile. He tracked mud onto her floor as he entered. Silence Montaigne. Nice morning,
Shadows.
She thought.
I don't have the mental strength to deal with him right now. Me neither!
Nor I. Also, I only half remember what I did for his voice.
Just
He moved to
basically
close.
the accent
What?
of the R's.
Cool. He moved to close the window shutters.
What are you doing?
She demanded. Haven't you warned me before that you loathe that people might see us together? That they might get a hint that you are turning in bounties to me? I'm just trying to protect you. Has something happened? You look awful,
I know what you did.
You do? But see, I do many things. About what do you speak?
Hello?
Hello? Can
Yeah?
you hear me? Are you
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, I'm here.
About what do you speak?
The
Oh,
next
that's
thing.
sorry, I thought that was a line. Ugh. Hello, it's getting late. Oh, how she'd like to cut that grin from his lips and cut out his throat. Stomp out that annoying last port accent. She couldn't. He was just so blasted good at acting. She had guesses, probably good ones, but no proof. Do it anyway. Grandmother would have killed him right then. See?
Yep.
Yeah, do it anyway. Was she so desperate to prove him wrong that she'd lose everything?
You were in the forests. When Red surprised me at the bridges, I assumed the thing I'd heard rustling in the darkness had been him. It wasn't. He implied he'd been waiting for us at the bridge. That thing in the darkness, it was you. You shot him with the crossbow to jostle him, make him draw blood. Why, Theophilus?
So he can take the body, probably, right? For himself?
Not even, well, if he can, yeah, okay, if he can try and take the body. Well, if he takes the body for himself, then he gets the payout. But if he stops her from getting the payout, then he owns the way stop.
Well, she wouldn't. If he takes the body, she doesn't get the payout at all.
Yep.
He's the one that can say, "Oh, I got the body, not her." Blood, Theophilus said, in the night, and you survived. You're quite fortunate. I should say remarkable. What else happened? She said nothing. I have come for payment of the debt. You have no bounty to turn in, then, Perhaps we will need my document after all. So kind of me to bring another copy. This really will be wonderful for us. This really will be wonderful for us both. Do you not agree?
I hate him so much. Okay.
I do too.
Your feet are glowing.
Theophilus hesitated, then looked down. There, the mud he'd tracked in shone very faintly blue in the light of the glow-paste remnants.
There's the proof! Haha! You followed me. You were there last night.
He looked up at her with a slow, unconcerned expression. And he took a step forward. Silence backed away, her heel hitting the wall behind her. She reached around, taking out the key and unlocking the door behind her. Theophilus grabbed her arm, yanking her away as she pulled open the door. Oh, is the 8-year-old gonna kill Theophilus?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
She's woken. She's gonna wake up now. It's morning.
Yep. Going for one of your hidden weapons? He asked with a sneer. The crossbow you keep on the pantry shelf. Yes, I know of that. I'm disappointed, Silence. Can't we be civil?
I will never sign your document, Theophilus,
she said, then spat at his feet.
I would sooner die. I would sooner be put out of the house and home. And you can take the waste off by force, but I will not serve you. You can be damned for all I care. You bastard, you.
He slapped her across the face. A quick but unemotional gesture. Oh, do shut up.
Oh,
She
I hate him.
stumbled back. Such dramatic silence. I can't be the only one to wish you lived up to your name, hmm? She licked her lip, feeling the pain of his slap. She lifted her hand to her face. A single drop of blood colored her fingertip when she pulled it away. You expect me to be frightened? Theopolis asked. I know we're safe in here.
Fort City fool.
She whispered, then flipped the drop of blood at him. It hit him on the cheek.
Always follow the simple rules, even when you think you don't have to. And I wasn't opening the pantry as you thought.
Theopolis frowned, then glanced over at the door she had opened. Door into the small old shrine. Her grandmother's shrine to the god beyond. Oh man, is the shade of her grandmother in there?
Yeah! Look, it's like she's kept to that. Ooh.
It's a little creepy, but could be cool.
Yeah.
The bottom of the door was rimmed in silver. Red eyes opened in the air behind Theopolis, a jet-black form coalescing in the shadowed room. Theopolis hesitated, then turned. He didn't get to scream as the shade took his head in its hands and drew his life away. It was a newer shade, its form still strong despite the writhing blackness of its clothing. A tall woman, hard of features, with curling hair. Theopolis opened his mouth and his face withered away, eyes sinking into his head.
You should have run, Theopolis. Oh, that's satisfying.
Silence said, yeah, quite. His head began to crumble. His body collapsed to the floor.
Hide from the green eyes, run from the red.
Silence said, retrieving the silver-tipped crossbow bolt from where it lay by the back door.
Your rules, grandmother.
The shade turned to her. Silence shivered, looking into those dead, glassy eyes of a matriarch she loathed and loved.
I hate you. Thank you for making me hate you.
She held the crossbow bolt before her, but the shade did not strike. Silence edged around, forcing the shade back. It floated away from her, back into the shrine lined with silver at the bottom of its 3 walls, where Silence had trapped it years ago. Her heart pounding, Silence closed the door, completing the barrier, and locked it again. No matter what happened, that shade left Silence alone. Almost, she thought, it remembered, and almost Silence felt guilty for trapping that soul inside the small closet for all these years. Wow, so there's something going on in the minds of the shadows, the shades.
Yeah, but it's primal, you know, like it's instinct based. It doesn't. That's what I'm thinking. That because like as you shrivel, you kind of lose your mind. So I'm thinking that they have something, but it's not coherent consciousness. It's just feelings and sensations and
primal.
pure instinct. Yeah.
Silence found what?
Librelita. Oh god, this planet sucks.
Indeed, it does.
I really like. I was just thinking, like, okay, about killing Theopolis. I'm like, all you need is just you need a shade to take the body. So that's really easy to dispose of him. And there you go. We got the shade killing him and disposing of him, I suppose, at the same time.
Silence found Theopolis's hidden cave after 6 hours of hunting. It was about where she'd expected it to be, in the hills not far from the old bridge. It included a silver barrier. She could harvest that. Good money there. Inside the small cavern, she found Chesterton's corpse, which Theopolis had dragged to the cave while the shades killed Red and then hunted Silence.
I'm so glad for once you were a greedy man, Theopolis.
She would have to find someone else to start turning in bounties for her. That would be difficult, particularly on short notice. She dragged the corpse out and threw it over the back of Theopolis's horse. A short hike took her back to the road, where she paused, then walked up and located Red's fallen corpse, withered down to just bones and clothing. She fished out her grandmother's dagger, scored and blackened from the fight. It fit back into the sheath at her side. She trudged, exhausted, back to the way stop and hid Chesterton's corpse in the cold cellar out behind the stable beside where she'd put Theopolis's remains. She hiked back into the kitchen, beside the shrine's door where her grandmother's dagger had once hung. She had placed the silver crossbow bolt that Sabruki had unknowingly sent her. What would the fort authorities say when she explained Theopolis's death to them? Perhaps she could claim to have found him like that. She paused, then smiled.
Okay, so it's not that easy to dispose of him. He's not just going to be dust. Damn it.
No.
He's a husk. Yeah,
but I'm sure she'll find a way to deal with
it. There's no proof. I just found him that way.
Yeah.
It's a good ending.
Looks like you're lucky, friend, Baggins said, sipping at his beer. The White Fox won't be looking for you anytime soon. The spindly man, who still insisted his name was Ernest, hunkered down a little farther in his seat. How is it you're still here? I traveled all the way to Lastport. I hardly expected to find you here on my path back. I hired on at a homestead nearby, said the slender-necked man. Good work, mind you, solid work. And you pay each night to stay here? I like it. Feels peaceful. The homesteads don't have a good silver protection. They just let the shades move about, even inside. The man shuddered. Irony. To that one a little bit. Dagon shrugged, lifting his drink as Silence Montaigne limped by. Yes, she was a healthy-looking woman. He really should court her one of these days. She scowled at his smile and dumped his plate in front of him. I think I'm wearing her down, Dagon said, mostly to himself as she left. You will have to work hard, Ernest said. 7 men have proposed to her during the last month. What? The reward, Spindly Man said. The one for bringing in Chesterton. Lucky woman, Silence Montaigne, finding the White Fox's lair like that. Dagon dug into his meal. He didn't much like how things had turned out. That dandy Theopolis had been the White Fox all along. No, don't give him the credit for...
Yeah.
Okay,
but you know what? She doesn't care about the glory. She's like, whatever.
Yeah. Poor Silence. How had it been stumbling upon his cave and finding him inside all withered away? They say that this Theopolis spent his last strength killing Chesterton, Ernest said, then dragging him into the hole. Theopolis withered before he could get to his silvery powder. Silver powder. Theopolis withered before he could get to his silver powder. Very like the White Fox, always determined to get the bounty no matter what. We won't soon see a hunter like him again. A hunter must hunt. Bloodborne reference. I suppose not, Dagon said, though he'd much rather that the man had kept his skin. Now who would Dagon tell his tales about? He didn't fancy paying for his own beer. Nearby, a greasy-looking fellow rose from his meal and shuffled out the front door, looking half-drunk already, though it was only noon. Some people, Dagon shook his head. To the White Fox, he said, raising his drink. Ernest clanked his mug to Dagon's. The White Fox, meanest bastard the forests have ever known. May his soul know peace, Dagon said, and may the God beyond be thankful that he never decided we were worth his time. Amen, Ernest said. Of course, Dagon said, there is still Bloody Kent. Now he's a right nasty fellow. You better hope he doesn't get your number, friend, and don't you give me that innocent look. These are the forests. Everybody here has done something now and then that you don't want others to know about.
Whew.
Ooh.
I know we're not doing the postscript, but I just saw something very exciting. This story started when George R.R. Martin leaned over at a book signing the two of us were doing and said, hey, do you do short fiction? Well, we have a Gurm tie-in.
Yay, Gurm tie-in, but we're avoiding the postscripts for fear of spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
So no farther than that, Kitty.
I shall not pass. Yeah. Well, I love the way that... Story. Yeah, I like the way that it book ended as well. Like, we started with the day. Yeah, that was very well done.
Hot take, I like Sixth of the Dusk more, but this was neat. This was written for Gurm. Oh, I bet Gurm would very much like this.
Yeah, there's enough death and rich and all of that.
Yeah. He did a collection of short stories called Strong Women. Oh.
Well,
Boy.
yeah. No, well, it's not this kind of strong
Sanderson
woman.
has a lot of strong women.
Yeah, but
and
they work.
like well realized characters. Story first written women.
Yes, good. Real women, it feels like.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't know, puppets.
The facade.
Yeah. I guess Sixth of Dusk, I like them both. I know that they're different. I know that they're doing different things. I do feel like I was way more terrified in Sixth of Dusk. It was way creepier.
So creepy. Cool to see this type of woman to see, and glad it was in that type of collection. Yeah, I agree. She's a very unique archetype that isn't frequently given protagonist status, I think. So that was good.
Yeah. She's got this whole
engaging.
Complex, yeah, engaging. It's got this whole complex, characteristics of she's got her own trauma but she's got strength and she still wants love and she's a mother, and then there's the difference between her and her daughter. So all of that.
Yeah.
And even the stable guy was a nice rich character that he like turns out to have known,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep, it was originally published in the Dangerous Women anthology, edited by George R. R. Martin and Gardner Dozois. Yes. So Libralita, there's a Sabruki theory in another book, and after listening to this, I believe it very much. Excellent. When we get to that point, let us know. And Kite and I are in talks about doing something for Elantris. It's probably going to be a tremendous ways off. Just know that is in our consciousness. And Libralita, I will message you in a couple of days. I'm going to create a group chat with you, me and Kite, and I, so we can schedule the fan casting. And I'll have to write a list of the characters that we're going to be doing. Again, it will be Emperor's Soul, Sixth of the Dusk, and Shadows for Silence. And for those who don't know and are new here, what I do is 2 casts, a current cast and a timeless cast. So that'll be great. We've got quite a bit of work to do. Whenever works for both of you. Emperor's Soul, still my fave, but very excited for future 6th content. Yes, I hear that Sanderson's coming out with new 6th content soon, so that's exciting. Let's see. Thank you, Zebus. Thank you, Libralita. Thank you, MPG. Thank you, Glidus. Thank you, all of the lurkers that hung out with us for this adventure. I hope you all had a very spooky Halloween. It really does mean a lot to me that so many of you are enjoying what I'm doing here and what Kite is helping me do here.
Thanks for coming around. Have you liked the stream yet? Have you? Do it now.
Okay, but this is very important. Only like it if you actually like the stream. I will not take any hollow likes, and I will know if it's a disingenuous like.
Don't pity like, okay?
It's me trying to be funny. Thanks, Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol. Oh, cute.
Happy Halloween. I'm very tired, so I'm gonna end the stream now.
Bye.
Bye.